I'll call this meeting to order, and Mr. Doheny, if we can get rolling.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, at this time, at the request, Mr. Mayor, of yourself and the Vice Mayor, staff is going to give City Council an update on Hampton Roads Transit request for developing land, corporate landing.
Thank you. Welcome, Amanda.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer, Vice Mayor Wilson, members of City Council, Manager Duhaney, and City Attorney Stiles. I'm here today to provide an overview to you of the Hampton Roads Transit Corporate Landing Development Proposal, which had previously been considered by the Virginia Beach Development Authority. I have with me today Matt Nader from VHB and Lisa Murphy, Chair of the Virginia Beach Development Authority as well. So the purpose of this briefing is to provide you a background of the Hampton Roads Transit Development Proposal, again, that was previously considered by the VBDA to be located in Corporate Landing, and then review the requested development agreement terms and the timeline of this project. Here are the disclosures. So HRT approached the city and the Virginia Beach Development Authority in 2021 with interest in developing a new, at that time, $64 million Southside Bus Operating Division facility. This facility was proposed to utilize offshore wind purchased through Dominion Energy to power it and create 120 jobs. The existing HRT Parks Avenue facility in the resort area is no longer meeting that system's need, and so this proposed expansion would allow for regional transit system growth. The development at that time was proposed to be completed by the end of 2024. In June of 2023, the VBDA was notified that HRT had received a federal grant for the construction of the facility. So VBDA owns Corporate Landing Business Park and approved a resolution to sell 11 acres to HRT in September of 2021. That resolution included the following terms: that HRT was to purchase the 11 acres at $200,000 per acre, which was the appraised value at that time, and that they had until October of 2022 to complete their due diligence and close on the property. HRT would be responsible for any infrastructure improvements necessary for the project other than the road access and 60% impervious coverage for stormwater treatment. So all of the deadlines that were associated with the 2021 resolution to sell have expired. There was never a final option agreement or a purchase and sales agreement that was executed by either party. There was no obligation in writing to bind or encumber that property for HRT. An option agreement was never proposed, and there was no formal control of the property by HRT. This facility would have required 2 conditional use permits to be submitted for review and approval by the Planning Commission and City Council. Neither have gone through any portion of that process, and it would also require modifications to proffers for reduced setbacks. So the maximum building coverage and paved area coverage for the property would have been 85% rather than 65%. The rear property line setback would have been requested to be 10 feet instead of 30 feet, and the side yard setback on the southern boundary of the property would have been requested to be 5 feet rather than 15 feet. So there were numerous terms and that were never agreed to and that were different from the original resolution that was adopted by VBDA in 2021. And so a new approval would have been required to proceed with the project. In early 2024, HRT requested VBDA consider permitting an enhanced use of the regional stormwater pond, which is currently under construction. There was some back and forth and debate about the contribution that HRT would make to utilize a broader amount of the pond. Originally, $13,000 was offered, and then as discussions continued, they did increase their offer up to $400,000. VBDA had never offered this consideration to any other project that had considered to be located in the park. So where we are today is that all deadlines for the 2021 resolution to sell the property have expired. There was never any final agreement, option, or document that would have encumbered this property for the use by HRT. VBDA is actively marketing the site for other development opportunities. We did communicate. There was a Teams call with the HRT staff in December of 2024 to indicate to them formally that VBDA did not intend to pursue this project. Since then, there's been additional written correspondence, and VBDA and the staff have offered to assist them in finding other locations should they choose to develop this property in the city. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions. If there are any technical questions, I'll refer them to the VHB staff.
Any questions at this point, Amelia?
Just go back, please, and thank you, Amanda, for sharing this, where you have the proposed facility considerations. Right there, where you have the setbacks and so forth, 7 and 8.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you go into a little bit more detail about that?
So for this property to be developed, it would have required a conditional use permit to be issued for the outside storage. And then a corporate landing has design guidelines, which have certain coverage ratios and setback requirements. This property as currently proposed would have needed to have several alterations to that.
Okay,
But-
and go on.
We didn't ever get to that point in the process.
Oh. Okay. And then you mentioned they have received letters, a letter.
Mr. Stiles did provide a letter to them that indicated what was shared with them verbally in December of 2024, that the VBDA did not intend to consider this project. I believe a copy of that letter was in your council package.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just so it's said publicly.
Yes, ma'am.
On that form. And then with the current situation, all the deadlines, so there was an earlier agreement, everything has expired.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's nothing else further as far. Could you address that, please?
Yeah, Lisa, if you can, give the,
Because we have some of the HRT people I see out there, and, okay, go ahead.
So as Amanda said, back in 2021, there was a resolution that involved certain terms where basically terms of a term sheet. So the VBDA at that time authorized the sale of 11 acres, and the closing was supposed to happen by October of 2022. That was the resolution that was referenced. So normally we would enter into a purchase agreement after a resolution. And to Amanda's point, there was never a purchase agreement signed. So that resolution never became a binding purchase agreement between the VBDA and HRT. And negotiations, discussions continued between HRT and economic development staff for several more months, but there was never a purchase agreement signed.
All right.
okay, Barbara, and then we're going to go to Cash and then Stacy.
Is HRT interested in purchasing this now and building this facility?
So I would not want to speak on behalf of HRT. We have received several letters from various stakeholder groups that continue to express support for a transaction with HRT and corporate landing. We've expressed to HRT both verbally and in writing via the city attorney's office that VBDA does not have an interest in pursuing additional discussions with them. And so there's been no formal action between the staff or VBDA and HRT. We have, again, as I mentioned, offered to help them locate other sites.
Isn't there a grant?
No, you can't. I'm sorry.
I would really love to hear from HRT.
Okay, but not right now,
Okay,
Barbara.
all right. Isn't there some money, grant money that was available to HRT based on this site
We understand.
someplace?
Yes, ma'am. So we understand that HRT sought federal funding for the construction of the site. They have indicated that it was site-specific. I have not seen that grant application, but that is what we have been told by HRT.
Well, in spending some time with this resident survey final report that we just got, in the satisfaction ratings from our citizens for the city, the only thing lower than the adequacy of transit services is how well the city of Virginia Beach is managing growth. That bottom thing, they give us a 23.5, but the adequacy of transit services is only at 30.2%. And throughout this, our residents keep asking for more transit. We know that we have a deficit in transit services. And we talk about affordable housing. You can't have affordable housing if you don't have affordable transportation. And so they really go together. So I really hate for us to lose this opportunity to have transit. I mean, they have been working on this for quite some time. And as I said, maybe at some other point, if not this moment, I would really like to hear from HRT.
We will.
Because we've been talking about this now for several years. I really thought it was still in the works to go in corporate landing. So I was kind of surprised, but it said here somewhere that we weren't interested in signing an agreement with a non-tax-paying entity. Well, maybe they're not paying taxes, but they're providing a service. And so I would hope that's not a criteria, but I would really like to hear more because we desperately need transit in Virginia Beach.
Okay, we're gonna go through the questions and we'll invite Mr. Harrell up. Okay. We're gonna go with Cash.
So thank you for the presentation. One of the things that I try to do is represent the people. And so I wasn't on the council in 2021 when that agreement was made, but I can tell you I'm on council now, and I'm interested in hearing what HRT has to say. When I was campaigning, they were the only, if you will, name that I can recognize when it comes to the work that they have done, trying to get us up and running with transportation. So as now being on council, I recognize your authority, the BBDA, but the authority of council is that we represent the people. And so for me, as new on this council, I would like to be briefed on how HRT could provide maximum transportation for us. That would help me a lot. And so that's where I would rest at. Transportation is a thing because it goes in line with our sports tourism. And if we don't have transportation, sports tourism goes down the drain. And so I understand you have positions in business. I understand that. I respect that. But I also respect HRT.
Okay, Stacy and then Josh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm just trying to clarify what we're trying to do here. Are we just trying to open the door for more negotiations? Or is there some proposal that we're supposed to be looking at, or?
We got a request to give council informational briefings because there's been letters going around regarding HRT's interest in this property, and the agreement between them and the BBDA expired. So this is an informational briefing to give city council situational awareness of what's going on right now. Currently, right now, there isn't an ask of city council an informational briefing. However, city council is more than welcome. Obviously, can't tell y'all to do that, to give feedback and give direction however you all desire it. But this is VBDA's property. So ultimately, the direction on the use of this property is currently with VBDA, but they are appointed by the council as your staff. So if you give feedback, they will listen to your feedback.
There's no specific ask. Right?
There's no specific ask. It's an informational briefing, sir.
Okay, Josh and Amanda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The grant funding, that was federal funding, is that correct?
As we understand it, yes, sir.
And it was, and as we were told, it was tied to this specific location. I saw a little bit of dialogue on there about an offer to look at different locations. I was curious a little bit about that, and given the context of federal funding right now, I'm wondering, is there any certainty in terms of that grant funding that we need to be aware of, or lack thereof? And I mean, I understand this corporate park is intended for economic development purposes. Obviously, transit helps us in that regard, but this wouldn't necessarily be a tax generating property. So, and to read this letter, it looks like stormwater is the issue. So I heard that there was more than a foot of, I guess, pavement that had to be put in to kind of stand up to what the use was. So can you talk a little bit more about these site-specific concerns?
Sure. So I'll start and then have VHB expand. So there had been various stormwater models that were in the process of being developed for the corporate landing park. And there are certain calculations that were used that allow certain capacity within that pond for each of the businesses that would develop within that. Due to the large degree of impervious surface for this facility because of its use as a bus maintenance facility, as you saw in the earlier slide, it was close to 85% impervious, meaning that they needed greater capacity in the stormwater pond that was being modeled and proposed and is under construction today. The site is not able to accommodate stormwater underground because of the depth necessary of the asphalt due to the weight of the buses. As I understand it, because of the battery-powered buses, they weigh 1.5 to 2 times more than the traditional bus facility. So the stormwater demands for a site of this size very much complicate the development of it. And with that, I'll ask VHB to further expand.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Yeah, just to expand on that a little bit, there was a master plan for stormwater approved at Corporate Landing. I think it was back in 2016 or so. And there's another master plan that predates that, but the 2016 was the update. That was created in conjunction with the design guidelines that allow for 60% impervious for all these parcels. So in order for the 85% to kind of work with the regional BMPs that have been designed and approved now, we have to kind of take areas from other parcels and really push the requirement of on-site treatment to somebody else. And so it's a disproportional kind of shift of the area. So one of the ways it's kind of been described is trying to fit 10 pounds of sugar in a 5-pound bag. There's a lot of impervious on this one parcel, and we just don't have the availability in the ponds per all of the modeling that's been done.
Just
Amelia, and then,
really quick on the follow-up though, I didn't hear anything about the grant money, and we may not know those answers and the specific tie to this property and some of the other efforts to look at other properties. Sorry about that, Mayor.
So unfortunately, all that we know is what's publicly available. There's in the Federal Register, there is an announcement about the 2003 grant. The only information we have about that is that the funds would have to be expended by the end of September 30, 2026. So there is assuming those funds are still available, like you said, they would have to be expended before the end of September of next year. And we have offered, I've talked to the Navy about the possibility of some property that they may have as properties become available. I've passed them on to staff has passed them on. So we've encouraged them. We're not saying no to the use because that's not within the purview of the Development Authority. We're just saying, given the limitations on land and our stormwater facilities, that this is not the appropriate location.
okay, Amelia, then Rosemary.
All right, first I want to thank you, Mayor Dyer, for giving Harold, who's President and CEO, a minute to kind of address for people to understand a little bit more. And I did talk with the chairman as well, and she did explain to me, just like you did, about, as you called it, fitting so much sand into what. But for everyone to understand, so we can move forward, whether there's ample land or what. But just like you said, there has been a lot of rumors and so forth, and we need to cut that off and really move forward together as a team. Because I represent HRT for the city as the commissioner. And I felt this is very important, and I've talked with our vice mayor and so forth about this so that it can be brought to light, and then we can make some decisions. Yes, it did get a grant, and I hope you will, Mr. Harold, I hope you will mention about the grant, how much to do with the $64 million, all of this. So that way for the public and everyone around the table council, because like you mentioned, yes, we as a council have the VBDA that is appointed, but they also make certain decisions based on, like you went over, land and so forth. But just so it ends up something that is work together as a team more than the friction that's happening now.
Okay, let's go Rosemary, then we'll ask Mr. Harrell.
Originally, the Development Authority did agree to the terms. The terms changed, isn't that correct? The terms changed,
Fairly significantly. So the original terms were specifically the 11 acres. They would have had the stormwater that we give everybody else in the park. So that includes the 60% impervious. And then it had a set closing date of October of 2022. So there were several terms in there that were part of that initial resolution that weren't met.
so the terms changed, and then the conditions changed, not just the terms, but the conditions and the requirements for what HRT we're going to need. And I remember Mr. Rodman from your company said, same thing you said, it was like putting 10 pounds of sugar in a 5-pound sack. It was hard to put that facility on this particular site. And I don't think we've ever given waivers on setbacks to the other companies. Is that correct?
I don't think that we have, but I'll let Amanda address it.
Not that we're aware of. Again, some of these discussions predate the staff there today, but I'm not aware that we've given these types of these types of changes, variances to companies locating in Corporate Landing.
And the stormwater needs were going to affect the other parcels that we're going to be trying to market as well. So it's going to really affect the other, well, there's 51 acres left in the park.
Yes, across.
So the other 40 acres is going to affect being able to market them for businesses and economic development. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. So there's 51 acres currently available in the park across 7 parcels. As Mr. Mader referenced, because there was the consideration to allow HRT to utilize more capacity, it was going to limit the ability for individuals to develop on the other parcels. So the capacity that would have been made available to them would be no longer available, requiring them to create on-site stormwater storage.
So it's not, I mean, we would love to help HRT out and find them another parcel, but not only is it going to affect this parcel, but it's going to affect the other land that we have left. So it's a pretty monumental decision.
Okay, Michael. And then we'll get to Mr. Harrell.
I think there's a lot to be said about this, but I agree with Councilmember Ross Hammond that I think the tension on this project needs to be turned down all in general. And let's focus on, I think, that the need that exists in terms of transportation and transit in Virginia Beach and our region, and hopefully find a site that's appropriate and suitable. And I understand the complexities around all of those things, and I'm not going to diminish them, but I do have, so that's my general comment, and thank you for indulging it. But then the more specific question is, I'm almost can't believe I'm reading this. The maximum building paved area coverage for the property should be 80%, 85% instead of 65%. So what you're saying is we're increasing the pervious surface on this site from 65%, which is the standard, and is that the standard for Corporate Landing, or is that the standard for development in Virginia Beach in general?
A standard for Corporate Landing.
Standard for Corporate Landing. And that's based on soil conditions, the stormwater park properties, and the capacity of the stormwater park, and other things that are related to that specific site.
There's design criteria that were adopted in 2021 for this park.
So as meritorious of a public need as this project may be, or what we're talking about is a variance from our stormwater standards, which is something the citizens have also prioritized. As the representative for an area that was impacted by the storm in 2016 as a result of people ignoring the science around stormwater and maintenance for years, is problematic for me. And I'm actually surprised to hear some of the advocacy even around this table from people who are very rigid on standards like that in other settings, but in here appear to be advocating for variance. So you're talking about reducing the impervious surface, increasing the pervious surface on this site from 65 to 85%.
Yes, sir. My understanding is that the amount of impervious surface is necessary due to the use because it is a bus maintenance
I think
facility.
just highlights probably a more appropriate size site would be a better fit. With the history of stormwater in Virginia Beach, to be imagining that we're relaxing those standards when we've been rigidly adhering to them for all these years, since Hurricane Matthew specifically, we should have been before that, but we're now relaxing them because of a arguably different public need.
The site
Existing cohesion.
The site use and the requirement for the amount of impervious surface certainly creates challenges in navigating both the stormwater and finding an appropriate site. Yes, sir.
Michael?
Yes, thank you.
Hutch?
Just real quick, buddy, with the stormwater, this seems to be the topic here right now. You know, I see the blue on the sketch and everything else, and we're talking about that it's going to push it off onto the other folks that might want to develop the property. Just learning about all this and trying to understand it, and having been in National Park and in a boat, getting people out of their houses. So I've lived this on the bad side. And obviously this wouldn't probably rise to that level, but we don't want to flood the park either, right? So are you saying, in your professional opinion, that there's not much that can be done, or that there's nothing that can be done with this current model?
In my professional opinion, there's a few things that can happen. You can have, the parcel next door have 30% impervious, which is not practical.
Yeah, I'm not asking for, no, I'm wanting more of what you think is.
What I think is if you can address the additional area on site, like we've mentioned, going underground, if there's area in the parking lot that the buses don't drive through, can you put an underground detention system that spans that whole area? And is there enough vertical clearance from the groundwater? All those things that could be looked at. And I think you probably could make it work if the conditions were appropriate. And then you could have the others, the 60% addressed by the pond. And then they could, on their own, go underground. That's what we're doing on a lot of these projects these days, right, in other areas.
So then the other part there, that the deputy city manager has spoke to a little bit is, no engineer, but I know fire trucks are heavy, so are buses. So you start pouring stuff thicker. Our groundwater's at 4.5 feet. You start you're dealing with a very small space. Correct. That you're going to get away with being able to do this. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think that's the general thought on this.
Not that it's impossible, just that this is going to be something that's going to have to be worked through. If this was to move forward.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's why we were thinking, are there areas where the buses are not driving that maybe require less of a section? I don't know the answer to that. That'd be worth investigating. Certainly not impossible. Have to get creative, and it's probably expensive.
Yeah, because that was one last thing there, sir, is that the other part is are they buy the other piece of property and they make it their own,
right.
I don't know how much that money that would be, but if you bought a lot and a half and built it, well, then you could do that, right? That is a feasible answer. I'm not saying it's fiscally responsible for them, but okay. Thanks.
And thank you. Mr. Harrell. We certainly welcome your comments.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Sybil Pappas just to come forward should there be any specific questions, particularly on the drainage piece. I just want to say we certainly appreciate the opportunity to come before you. Clearly, we appreciate the presentation. We do believe that there were other facts that could also, I think, shine light on this. I think from our perspective, there are two fundamental questions. The first is the South Side project a good fit for Virginia Beach? We believe it is. We've shared the improvement in terms of the transit system. It supports your comprehensive plan and strategic growth. There are significant benefits for the city in terms of $650,000 in cost savings relative to your transit bill. I'd like for you to show me which corporate partner in that park is paying $650,000 in taxes. I don't think that exists. The resolution passed in 2021 by the VBDA, yes. But what isn't being shared with you is the model, the stormwater model wasn't available. I certainly met with Ms. Jarrett and certainly the city manager, and we received the email back from Ms. Jarrett to Sybil Pappas on June 24th, which said, Ms. Pappas, it was wonderful to meet with you early this morning. Thank you for reaching out and providing the educational background on the construction of this project. Based on my follow-up conversations with staff, there is the ability to accommodate the stormwater needs of HRT with an existing pond. The existing capacity will have to be purchased, and the best estimate at that time, based on the information provided, is that the cost will be close to $400,000. We certainly agreed to that. We also agreed to paying full market price. We didn't ask for any concessions whatsoever, which brings me to the second question. Are we your regional partner? Virginia Beach is a 1/6 local partner of HRT. The discussions we were having after 2021, we were told we didn't have to worry about an option. We thought we had a working relationship with a partner. There were discussions about your questions, sir, relative to whether we could buy more property to expand upon or add additional facilities. We were told no on that. So the only thing I want to say is that we are your partner. We're here to work with you. We believe there is a sincere need for better public transportation throughout the region and certainly in Virginia Beach. So we're here to work with you, and I'll ask Ms. Pappas to address the issue on the grant, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Harrell. Thank you all. So we do have grant money, $130 million of committed grant money in our hand. This is money that has already survived DOGE. It's not going to be taken away. If I went and applied for new money because we couldn't develop at Corporate Landing, that would require a new grant because we would lose the federal grant money that is a part of $130 funded million. If I went and applied for a new grant today, well, that grant program does not exist today. So I guess everything didn't survive DOGE, but our project did. And our project competed across the country and was one of only 4 projects awarded money in the state of Virginia, and that was on the merit of the project. I remind you, it brings 125 new jobs to Corporate Landing. Those are jobs that are $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year. They're not $15 an hour jobs, 125 new jobs. That's $650,000 of savings. That's every year. And it could be more than that because as the cost of operating service by HRT increases year over year, so too does your savings increase because we're not running the deadhead miles we would from downtown Norfolk to get to the oceanfront. This is a project that brings money from outside the region and can't be spent anywhere else. So to say, let's not build it at Corporate Landing is to say, let's give back 48% of $130 million because we just don't need that money. Even if it went to another place in Virginia Beach, we would lose that money. It is address specific. It was a competitive grant. So that is why we are so eager to find a solution with the City of Virginia Beach. And I feel like we had a very strong partnership up until this agenda item got pulled from EDA's agenda. So that was a surprise to me. I hadn't had an opportunity to brief EDA up to that point, including today. I still haven't been able to brief EDA on the project. And although we've met with some of you individual city council members, we also haven't been able to brief city council. So I appreciate you bringing us forward today for this informational briefing.
Okay, any questions? Barbara?
I believe that you answered or included this statement because, and I'm very much concerned about making certain that we don't do something that violates our stormwater requirements. And that's a very important aspect of it. But in this letter from Mr. Stiles, Alex Stiles, I guess, said that, and I think this is what you said, that the two staffs had continued to negotiate the contract that would have provided HRT with off-site stormwater capacity for up to 85% of HRT's proposed impervious coverage at a cost of $400,000 to be added to the purchase price. So you were planning to be able to do the full 85%, and you were willing to pay the additional $400,000 that this would have required. So you were willing to meet that requirement to use, to meet this 85% rather than 65% requirement.
Yes, ma'am. And we didn't come to that solution in a vacuum. We had 10 at least meetings with the project team and the city's consultant, VHB, to try to work through how we could make the stormwater work. And that was a way that was proposed. If we bought the excess capacity in a stormwater pond that at that time hadn't been constructed, I think subsequently it started to be constructed starting this past January. But at that time, no pond existed. So HRT said, okay, well, we can contribute $500,000 to expanding that pond, which would get us from 65% to, I think it's really 82%. But if there were other on-site solutions that were needed, I think we would be amenable to that.
Another sentence in this same paragraph says, accordingly, the new contract terms negotiated by you with VBDA city staff were presented to the VBDA in December of 24 in closed session. At that time, the commissioners of the VBDA indicated that they were not interested in pursuing a sale to HRT on new terms and directed staff to cease negotiations. I am not free to divulge the details of their deliberations in the closed session, only the direction received. But my question would be, could we know what those terms might have been? So apparently this is saying that there were terms that they thought were in agreement, but VBDA had indicated they were not interested in pursuing a sale to HRT on the new terms. So I would just like to know what that contract.
Mark, is that a feasibility?
It's up to the chair of the VBDA or any information that Mr. Harrell has.
Okay.
If he has the information, it's not confidential.
If I could just say it.
Mr. Mayor, I just also want to clarify, any changes to the terms is always subject to VBDA approval, for example, like your approval. In essence, what was going on was the staff was giving the VBDA options for consideration. Ultimately, the VBDA determined they did not want to amend the terms after the agreement expired.
Okay. Cash.
So I want to thank you for your presentation. One of the things that we do is we want the public to be included, right? And so I'm grateful that you met, I think we met on Zoom, is that correct? And thank you for that. You brought me up to speed. I will say this, that with all of the federal cuts that are happening, and this is important for us to think about, with all the federal cuts that are happening, why are we going to give money back that's already been allocated for us that's address specific? I don't, for a lack of a better word, we're going to leave money on the table, then we're going to throw it away, and then we're going to have to look for another site, and then the taxpayers are going to be stuck with that again. That doesn't make sense. I think we have a win here. I wasn't privy to the conversations between the VBDA and HRT, but I can tell you from my study of HRT and the grant approval that was accessed to them and given to them specifically for this location, that doesn't make any sense for us as taxpayers to have to give up that money. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go with Worth and Stacy.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. I'm the only one at the table that has not spoken yet, and the reason why, the very first slide on disclosures, someone that I work with at my company is involved in this transaction. So since this is not a vote or anything, I'm just going to be quiet. All I gotta say, thank you.
Yeah, so you just said you're not gonna say anything. It's Stacy.
Close. Thank you.
Not to bring up any dispute or anything, but in my reading of Mr. Stiles' letter, this idea of $400,000 for stormwater mitigation was an item that was being discussed between the parties. It was not a proposal that was put forward by either VBDA or the city attorney's office. It was just something that had been proposed. And I guess at the end of the day, I think we still have the stormwater issue that needs to be addressed. That the city didn't create the issue of going from 65% to 85%. So I don't know that it's the city's responsibility to come up with a solution for that. I think it's HRT's responsibility to come up with a solution to that, as has been said here, and I think I don't know that the city or this council is going to bend on that requirement. So I think finding a way to mitigate that is going to be incumbent upon you to solve, whether it's underground or offsite. And B, the timing, the world's changed since 2021. The price of real estate's gone up. Our opportunities for this site have changed. So I think that these are things that need to be addressed more than just, that I think they need to be addressed in a concrete manner before we can go forward.
Yes, and we are very open to doing that. We've just been told that, the VBDA no longer wants to consider the project, and that was without a formal briefing from us. So we are very open, and I certainly say that on the record now. We're happy to work with our partners. Do you want to add anything?
Well, yeah, so I would just say, that $400,000 allowance was written into the purchase agreement that we submitted in October. And I think that agreement was coming for approval, presumably to VBDA in November's meeting. And then the week that it was to be presented, it got pulled from the agenda. And that was all the information that we had on that. So I think we had discussed it. We had, I thought, come to an agreement about paying $400,000 to buy the additional stormwater capacity. But if subsequently there was an issue from that, I didn't hear it. We had an agreement that was going forward for approval when the project stalled. So yeah, of course, we'd be happy. We have $130 million that could be at jeopardy. Of course, we're going to be able to work through the stormwater issues to be able to make that successful. And to Councilwoman Henley's comment, the comprehensive plan, the draft comprehensive plan in Virginia Beach right now calls for transit on every other page. There is no way for HRT to provide that transit service without this facility, period. There is no ability for us to add buses to our facility in Norfolk because the inn is full and it is just packed. And that's why the facility is so critical. And that's in support of Virginia Beach, but it's also in support of the region and all 6 cities. We can't expand service without this facility. It is critical.
Okay, Josh and Jen.
I'm just curious, this $400,000 and that topic that was being discussed, that was several years ago, correct? So does $400,000 still buy us the same thing now as it did then?
So
I guess probably not, but the other piece of that is, and I think the Vice Mayor mentioned it out loud, and it's not just the cost of obtaining, I guess, and expanding to get that offsite storage, but it's also what it could potentially do to other economic development prospects, and that they have less capacity to rely upon as we continue to build out the park. And to the extent that some of that stuff can be worked out, and this isn't within our purview anyway, we're just talking about it. This is in your lap, and the VBA's lap. So this is all good to hear, but this isn't necessarily our decision either.
Patrick and then.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not trying to defend the VBDA for the decision that they made, but you got to think about the context that the VBDA made that initial decision in 2021. Is the world of COVID, development installed. We had a couple hundred acres remaining at the time, still left to be developed. We've since moved on all that acreage, And when this finally came back to them, we were in a place now where we got 50 acres, 60 acres in the entire city that's available for industrial development underneath city VBDA control. That was some of the things that probably took into account why VBDA wasn't open to the idea of giving additional capacity for this use, which would then encumber the ability for the other developable parcels in terms of what we could actually bring there as well. So a lot of this is, I don't think it was intentional. I think a lot of this was just the timing and the reality of the situation.
Okay, Jen, and then Barbara.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you both for the information. I guess I'm thinking about the timeline. You're saying the grant expires when of next year in terms of when the funds need to be spent?
So federal funds need to be obligated by the end of 2026.
By the end of 2026?
Obligated, not spent.
Okay, so obligated. So I'm thinking, I know that VBDA is marketing the site now. And I know you're saying that there hasn't been an opportunity for you all to brief VBDA or us at this point. We're getting it now, so I'm glad we're getting some information. But in the context of the timeline for the federal funds, what's your schedule looking like in terms of if this project, if VBDA were to say, okay, we'll have a conversation with you and we'll see if this could be considered as they're considering other opportunities, what's your timeline looking like in terms of when those conversations need to start? And
So time is of the essence. I think our HRT's timeline is not about the grant. We're not concerned about the expiration of the grant. We're concerned about delivering 15-minute frequency on the 13 backbone routes that serve Hampton Roads. We can't expand our service. We can't deliver 15-minute service to the oceanfront today because we can't find a place to maintain the buses that it takes to be able to do that. Instead of having one bus an hour to the hotel at the oceanfront, you'll have 4 buses in an hour. It's transformational for workers to be able to get to work and not have to wait an hour to get that next bus to get to their destination. And who are those people who are taking transit? They are the employees at the hotels. They are the people who work at your favorite restaurant. It's the sous chef and the waiter. You want these people to be able to get to work. So even if you don't use transit, you rely on someone who does when you check in at the doctor's office and the receptionist checks you in. These are people who are critical to our economy, and getting them to work sooner rather than later is our #1 goal. This is fully funded by HRT. We're bringing the money to bear to be able to make this service happen instantaneously as soon as we can build a facility where we can provide service from. So that's the limiting reagent. And I think we felt like it was a really big win that HRT took this project to the national stage and tried to find money so that the contribution from the city of Virginia Beach on this $130 million project is $0 So for no contribution from the city, HRT was going to pay market price for the land. We determined market price by hiring an appraiser and a review appraiser. And we were going to contribute almost $500,000. It was like $490 to expand the stormwater pond to be able to have the capacity to do it. So we felt like this was really a win, and then suddenly it's stalled. But I think timing is of the essence for us even today. We cannot deliver 15-minute service on our 13 backbone routes. And where we have done that, on the Route 20 on Virginia Beach Boulevard in Virginia Beach, we have already seen ridership increase 50%. So we know that if we build it, they will come. People will rely on transit to get to work if it's reliable. But who could wait an hour if you miss the bus? I mean, that makes it so difficult to make transit efficient. So this is a much more efficient transit system for Virginia Beach and the whole region. And we need it. This is a non-starter for us. We can't deliver this service without this facility.
Okay, Michael, and then Rosemary.
Barbara, did you have a?
I'll just comment. I wish I had been able to hear more of what you said, but you talked so softly. I think you just made a pretty strong case. And if we start all over again with another site and we keep being told that there's just not very much available, I don't know where we're going to find another site quickly to be able to do all those things that you just said. I think it looks like you've reached the requirement. So that's just my thought.
Well, I don't think they have, but that's not what I wanted to say. The stormwater items have to be resolved. And I have a question for, I don't know if it's the engineer, please forgive me for not using your name, or Amanda. On the stormwater participation, I want to make sure I'm understanding what I'm hearing. Because the participation to expand the stormwater facility would impact the ability of the adjacent parcels, would impact their use and constrain and restrict their use. Even if we were able to reach that agreement, it would impact the adjacent parcels in a very, very, among the 51 acres that are left.
Yes, sir. So to answer,
So it's not a solution, it's a resolution, but I don't know that I would characterize that as a solution.
yes, sir, and creates other issues that would have to be further resolved. And that was part of what VHB and the staff was explaining to the VBDA when they were reconsidering the project, is that here is a path forward and here's a way that it can be accomplished for this project, but please do understand the impacts to the other parcels.
Understand, VVDA may know that, and they may not know the exact, before any decisions are made, the true understanding of what those, downstream impacts would be, should be understood so that everyone who's participating in that decision point would have all the information. I respect what you all do, and I have very great understanding of the important role that transit plays into our whole region. You're absolutely right. We may or may not use public transportation, but we rely on someone. We work with someone who does, and it is vital to the social and economic health of our region. You absolutely play a vital role in that, and I don't think there's anyone around the table who doesn't understand that or wants to in any way inhibit that. However, as a more, I have one more specific comment, and then maybe a more meta view of this. But on the topic of the grants, in the years that I've been in it, with great respect to what you said, Cash, I have been, and I guess this is just part of public service and it's part of just life. Sometimes you have to make decisions that are less than ideal, but consistently I find myself in the position of having to make a decision based on the presence of a grant that we weren't really aware of or participated in the development of. I can think, I'm not going to go down the list, but there's some currently active right now. There's some that we had to resolve, that we had to make a decision that wasn't really a great decision because we were going to lose money. This is a lot of money to lose. But I also think the people of Virginia Beach have made that choice, and whether we disagree or we don't agree with the outcomes of those previous decisions that people have made, I don't think the presence of a grant should be held over as, leverage. I think we have to look at a topic on its merits, and I think that's what you're here today to do. And I think part of that whole portfolio of points that are made is the presence of the grant, but as the overarching leverage point that we have to make a less than ideal decision for the city because of the presence of the grant is really not an ideal scenario for us to be in. I'm also curious, and I'm not asking this question I'm asking it really rhetorically, but where does the future of transportation, what does it look like? I know I trust your professionals, you're looking at this, but we're seeing autonomous vehicles, we're seeing self-driving vehicles. Are we going to need buses in 10, 15, 20 years?
Go up to the
I'm
microphone.
curious. Yeah, I think it's a great.
Yeah, please.
I'm curious what you think about that.
Sure.
I haven't studied it. I'm not asking with a bias.
Sure.
I'm genuinely curious.
It's a great question, and certainly our executive team, we spend a lot of time looking at that along with other transit leaders across this great nation. Certainly we see microtransit as a significant push. I think because of the capacities you get with buses now, we've bought, for instance, a lot smaller buses so that they can navigate more terrain. But I think because of the capacity piece, there will continue to be a need for some level of bus service. It may look differently, but we see really microtransit, which, we've got a pilot going on in Virginia Beach now, one in Newport News Next year, Hampton is going to have one along with Chesapeake. So we see an evolution of public transportation, and we're trying to be in a position to pivot as needed. You want to speak to that as well?
I mean, so I'm going to speak more loudly, and I'm going to speak to it with an image. And I feel like this image, it's like a picture says 1,000 words, right? Here's my image. I have it in a handout. I'm happy to pass around a copy for everyone. Here's a bus with 40 people in it. Here's 40 people driving. And this is what the congestion looks like for those 40 cars on the road, right? An autonomous vehicle, that's this congestion. So yeah, people can get where they want differently than driving themselves. But if your goal is to address congestion, then you need more people to drive together, not one person in his own car or in his own Uber who takes them to a destination and drops them off, and that car is still on the road. So, transit is for everyone, although everyone might not use it. But even if you don't ride it, it's taking all these vehicles off the road and making the congestion less and making the drive better.
Is it though? I mean,
Michael,
we'll
go
talk
right
about
ahead,
that. No,
please.
please forgive me.
No, Michael, go
We'll talk about it another time. It's a fascinating topic, and there's something uniquely about American culture that people like to drive in their cars, and if they can afford it. And I don't know that we're going to change that automotive culture that's inherent to who we are.
And I feel like we don't
ride
need
40
to
in a
change
bus.
it. We just want to offer people options. So if you find yourself in that place in life where you can't drive yourself to work for whatever reason, including your broken ankle today, that you have an option to still get to work.
I agree with you. Options are great.
Very good points, Michael. Okay, Rosemary?
So this has been a really tough one, and that's why the mayor and I wanted for the council to be able to hear everybody and to hear, there's a lot to it. And we have appointed the Development Authority to be able to look at things with economic development, and we've trusted them with certain properties to make sure they're being presented and done the best way that we can to bring in jobs and all the things that we have made as a priority with this council. And one of those things is the Corporate Landing Park. And they have to look at the whole thing, not just this one parcel, and how the whole park is going to be looked at, which is 50 acres. And this would be 40 acres left, but it's more than that. You've heard them say, it's going to affect the other 7 parcels that are left. So we have 10 acres left in Innovative Park 1, and I guess this really goes to show you how much we need to have some economic development land available with Innovative Park 2, because here we are having to fight over such a small amount of land. But there's a lot of concerns here. I mean, this pervious surface is going to be 18 to 24 inches thick to handle the weight.
It's 10 inches of reinforced
We were
concrete.
told, excuse me, I didn't interrupt you when you were speaking.
I'm sorry.
I didn't interrupt you. And that's what we were told by our consultants. It was going to be 18 to 24 inches thick. And that's why they couldn't do the underground. But also, they're asking for a lot of waivers and things that we haven't done for anyone else, or the authority hasn't done for anyone else. They haven't, the setbacks and the stormwater, and then how it's going to affect what's left. These are big concerns, and we've asked the authority to be able to look at everything so that they can make the decisions, so that we don't micromanage them. I do have a question for Mr. Duhaney. So that when the $650,000 came up, I checked with our finance director, and he didn't think we would reap that kind of a benefit. Can you comment on that?
It's impossible to know. I think the only way to really to certify that and be certain of it is if the council and VBDA were to move forward with this, if the HRT would be willing to put that into agreement, that they would guarantee or return or save the city or cut the city's contribution to the HRT contract by that dollar amount, right? Because there's a lot of variables in that target number.
And the other thing that I really struggled with is, and y'all stated this morning, that $5.5 million was spent on this project. And I find it incredulous that that kind of money was spent on property that you didn't have control over. That was kind of, and I'm not asking you to comment, I'm just saying I've just had a really hard time understanding that. I think it's really important to have a spot for you. We've offered to try to find you something else, but I'm going to rely on the experts that we've had with the Development Authority and something else. We don't have an economic development director right now. So we really need to also look for their leadership there as well. So appreciate what you do. I think I've always cared about transit. I came out and rode light rail when it was first available and that sort of thing. And I said I was going to support what the voters decided, and of course we know how that went. I know it was a disappointment for a lot of people. But we appreciate y'all taking the time to come and be with us today.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? I just want to thank everybody for the discussion, and I think what we have here is a true dilemma. And sometimes when you hit a dilemma, you hit an impasse. The fact is, both sides make some compelling arguments for and against. But once again, I really want to confer about the need to get back to the drawing board, for discussions. And now that you had at least a conversation where everybody stands. But once again, I'm gonna make a comment. A couple council members rightly brought up the temperature. And I've been hearing anecdotally about the temperature for a while. And it's been kind of distressing. Okay, that's not how we got to get to yes by doing that. But once again, the Development Authority has an obligation to represent the best interests of this council, hence the people. And we do have a need for public transportation. But once again, we got to look at the barriers to effective transportation. Where public transportation is really effective are usually the big cities with a grid system, where you can take one mode to another and get to where you got to go. The problem is we need a transportation system to get the people to where the jobs are, where people live. And, that could be a very, very challenging process going forward. So I think what the recommendation is, let's go back, to the table with a new spirit of cooperation, knowing a little bit more now where everybody stands. Where are the opportunities, but where are the barriers to success? And see what we can come up with, somehow, some way, with the intent of coming up with some kind of win-win. Okay, thank you all very much. Patrick?
Mr. Mayor, just to bring council back on track in terms of time, engaged in conversation, but that went longer, and we got a lot of things in closed session, especially in light of some of the election system court actions that we need to get to close. Is council okay if we would move the TIP fund analysis briefing to next week?
Would be okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's do that. I think it was important we had, that we really flushed this out. So I think that was important. Good suggestion, Patrick.
Hey, Kevin, can you get Emily started for me?
You're going to go back and talk about it. So it's going to defer conversation on the TIP fund that we scheduled. We got a bunch of stuff that was private, closed.
Okay, you want to do the agenda?
Oh, no, we got to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, at this time, Emily Archer, Deputy Director of Economic Development, is going to give City Council a briefing on a term sheet and a possible sale for 33 Laskin Road.
Great. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, City Manager Doheny, and City Attorney Stiles. Thank you for having me. So I wanted to give you an update. It's been a while since you asked us to RFP 333 Laskin Road. Give you a quick background of where we went with that and the negotiated sale terms we've arrived at today and seek your direction on the path forward. This is for 333 Laskin Road at the corner of Arctic Avenue and Laskin Road in the oceanfront near the Laskin Road Gateway. It's currently owned by the City of Virginia Beach. There's a leasee in there, Papa John's. They are in the process of relocating and will be out by the fall. It's a 0.3 acre site. It was purchased in 2011 as part of the Laskin Road Gateway project for $1.4 million, and it was appraised in 2023 at $1.68 million. After receiving multiple separate requests for purchase by Public Works Real Estate, Council directed an RFP be issued in the spring of 2024. We did issue that RFP from December to February for 60 days. It was publicly, excuse me, it was, there was a sign on the site. We put it in the Virginia pilot. We did direct distribution mailers. It was on our website. We received 2 responses after that 60-day period. A review committee was convened, and one of the respondents was recommended for acceptance and advancement. It came to you in closed session for direction and request to negotiate, and then on the sale terms in June. The selected developer for the response is VB Laskin Road LLC. This is primarily represented by Ashley Wiltshire of SJG Properties and Dan Shift of EB5 Capital. They have done a number of projects in the Washington, D.C. metro area, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. The proposal is for 215 multifamily apartment units, about a 5 to 6 story development. It's approximately 20,000 square feet of ground floor commercial and amenities along Laskin Road, much as currently exists now. There is a 330 space parking deck proposed on the rear on 30th Street. This is parking just for the development. There's no public parking or ask of the city for this parking. The estimated capital investment is $64 million, and they have committed to a 2-month build time after receipt of building permits. You can see a proposed rendering of the 5 to 6 story development proposed. This is looking southeast from the corner of Arctic and Laskin. We looked at it from our zoning perspective. It does meet form-based code for height and parking requirements, and some setbacks would need to be reduced a little bit here and there, but we think that could be accomplished administratively. There is an alleyway, though, as you see in the center, 30th and Half Street, that goes through the center of the development. This would require council approval for closure of that alley and agreement from any neighbors that are affected that have access off that alley currently. We ran a preliminary fiscal impact study on this. You can see that no restaurant was taken into account since there's restaurants there to begin with, and ideally these would backfill, hopefully much the same with the same type of commerce there. It's very positive with a net present value of $17.5 million. The project's estimated to generate annual average new taxes and $1.2 million in new real estate taxes per year. So we've negotiated sale terms for your consideration. Currently, the developer would purchase the property as well as our 30th and Half Street alley easement for $1.5 million. There'd be a 6-month due diligence period prior to closing on the property for everybody to conduct further site investigations, so verify where the underground utilities are and soil conditions, et cetera. The purchase price could be reduced up to $300,000 if they find utilities that aren't able to be removed or are an impediment to the project. The city would retain approval rights to the project scope. The city has agreed to demolish the existing structure that is on site once vacated. The developer would have to provide evidence of positive satisfactory financing and would also be responsible for any necessary underground utility relocation. The city, a lot of our agreements have this, but the city has the ability to recapture the property if construction has not commenced within 3 years of closing. So the proposed next steps, if interested in proceeding, would be a public hearing at your next meeting on August 19th, and then a vote on the term sheet and authorized development and execution of the sale documents on September 2nd. Any questions?
Okay, Stacy.
Thank you. What are the terms of the recapture if no construction started within 3 years?
So we, I'll let a lawyer answer that question.
Afternoon. If they have not commenced construction by the expiration of the recapture period.
Into the microphone.
Oh, sorry. If they have not commenced construction, we can take the property back for the price paid.
Or
the price they paid us.
So for the net amount of cash that we receive?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else at work?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Archer, Mr. Stiles, for the presentation. Just two things, just a quick question. So back on the question there, this is not contingent upon site plan approval, the 180 days?
I believe closing is contingent on site plan approval.
Due diligence and then closing. Closing is, okay.
Yes.
So that could take, right. So closing could be up to maybe a year from now, and then they have 3 years after that. So it could be some time there. Okay. So just a comment, this is in District 6 and the Alaskan Gateway, great part of the city. But I can't say enough about the tenants that are there now, one of which is a florist. It's been there for, I think, from the very beginning. All of us probably in some form or fashion have been there. This affects these businesses. I don't know the ability of the owner to keep those tenants there and build over the current tenants there. Of course, they'd have to survive through the construction and all that, but I'm supportive of this project for a lot of reasons. This is sad to see this tenant. It's an incredible tenant mix. So vintage Virginia Beach, authentic, whatever great term you want to use. Great food, great amenities, great just businesses. So I'm somewhat conflicted because they probably will go away. Hopefully they'll come back, but I just want to make that statement. It's not an easy decision for me to see that happen. But that's where I am.
Hey, Josh.
I wasn't going to say anything, but since you said as much, this is a really critical part of the corridor. Having those quaint shops on the south side, I mean, really just adds to kind of the character of that area in a special and kind of authentic way, like what you're saying. And totally understand that it was going to, of course, be redeveloped at some point. Just truly hope that they build. I see what looks to me like a 20-foot wide plus sidewalk there. Just something that accentuates that area as a not really a linear park, but just a linear promenade, and especially since we just had the street closure there, and maybe some additional kind of opening up of ideas around celebrating our city outdoors in that way. This is a special part of the resort, so the public spaces should reflect that.
Anybody else? I think it's transformational. Let's go for it.
Great, thank you.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time, the next briefing will be provided by your planning department staff. We're going to give you an update on the planning items that will come before your attention tonight and also on the 19th.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. As always, I am here this afternoon. I'm going to give you an overview of the planning items for consideration on your agenda this evening as well as next week. So for this evening, we have a total of 16 items, including several ordinance amendments, which Kevin will come up and do an overview of those in just a few minutes. So looking first at item 1, this is a subdivision variance request for property located at 3840 Dolly Road in District 2. This is a 36-acre parcel. It is zoned AG1 and AG2. The applicant is proposing to subdivide the parcel to create 2 lots as shown on the slide there. The Proposed lots will meet most of the dimensional requirements for the agricultural district. However, they will be substandard with regards to lot width, with proposed lot widths of 20 feet and 136 feet. And so that necessitates the need for the variance. Staff has received a total of 6 letters of support for the subject request, as well as 1 letter of opposition, which noted that they felt the lots should meet the requirements of the ordinance. There were no speakers present at the Planning Commission hearing, and the Commission did vote to recommend approval of the item on their consent agenda. Item 2 is a request for a modification of conditions for an outdoor recreational facility located on an outparcel of Lynn Haven Mall within District 3. As many of you may recall, Council did grant a conditional use permit for an outdoor rec facility at this location in 2024 to allow for the operation of an inflatable park on a seasonal basis. A condition of that 2024 approval limited the operation to the months of March through September, and the applicant now wishes to include the months of October and November. There are no other changes proposed with this request. The applicant did speak with the residents on the opposite side of South Lynn Haven Road about the modification. They did receive one neighbor who had concerns from the previous year regarding amplified music. They did provide their contact information to that neighbor as well as other residents in the area should there be any concerns in the future. The Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval of this. We didn't get any formal opposition, nor did we have any speakers at the hearing. Item 3, this is another modification of conditions request. This is related to a motor vehicle sales and service conditional use permit for 875 and 877 Laskin Road, as well as the parcel directly south of 621 Village Drive in District 6. A conditional use permit for the existing dealership was granted by City Council in 2002 and subsequently modified in 2005. The applicant now seeks to add the additional parcel located off of Village Drive to the CUP, and this will be used for additional storage space for vehicle inventory. The site is zoned to B2 and does lie within the Hilltop SGA. A total of 249 parking spaces are proposed with this request. Due to the location of the residential district to the south, a 15-foot wide landscape buffer is required along that southern property line. In addition to the landscape buffer, the applicant is also proposing to install a vinyl privacy fence to further buffer the use. Additionally, to minimize impacts to the residences, staff has recommended conditions to limit delivery of truck traffic to use of the Laskin Road access, as well as to prohibit the use of any outdoor speaker or paging systems. We have not received any opposition to this request, and the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval on their consent agenda. Item 4 is a modification of Proffer's request for 1276 Baker Road and the parcel immediately to the north within District 4. This site was conditionally rezoned in 2022 from I-1 Light Industrial to A36 Apartment District to allow for the construction of a 524-unit multifamily development. The site is approximately 14.5 acres and lies within the Burton Station SGA. The current applicant is seeking to amend the 2022 proffers to modify the site layout and then to reduce the total number of units to 375. These units will be spread across 5 buildings, all of which will have a maximum height of 70 feet, and that is well within the 120-foot height limit within the A36 district. Though not required, the applicant has proffered a 15-foot wide landscape buffer along the north, south, and east property lines, as well as an 11-foot wide meandering sidewalk with landscaping along the site's frontage. To accommodate that sidewalk, an 18-foot wide right-of-way dedication along the entire frontage is required. Due to that dedication, the applicant is unable to meet the 30-foot front yard setback for the accessory garages proposed, as well as the compactor enclosures. So the accessory garages are proposed to be 3.5 feet from the right-of-way, and then those compactors are proposed at 8.5 feet from the right-of-way. So those are deviations they are requesting with this ask. They're also requesting a deviation for the monument sign. Typically, it would be required to be 5 foot from the setbacks. They are proposing 3.5 feet from the setback. The applicant did submit a parking study to the zoning administrator to allow for a reduction in parking required to support the development. The ordinance would typically require a total of 669 parking spaces for this use. However, they are proposing a total of 582 spaces. This request was approved by the zoning administrator, and this was based on the ratio of other multifamily developments approved recently, the number of bedrooms proposed. So looking at the number of bedrooms to the parking spaces, you have a ratio of 0.96 spaces per bedroom for what is proposed here. Also, the proximity of HRT Route 27. And then according to 2022 census data, there are approximately 5,500 jobs within 3/4 of a mile of this site. So for those reasons, the administrator thought the reduction was justified. We have not received any opposition to this request, and the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval.
Yes. Oh, Amelia.
I did meet and talk with the attorneys and people surrounding this because it's in a special area along Baker Road and 325 new apartments. I did ask for them to consider 1 or 2 at affordable or attainable housing because within that whole Burton Station, you sometimes get where people who live there or would like to go into somewhere else cannot afford all the market rate. So they are considering that, like a 7%, like Cypress Point. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5 is a request for a conditional use permit for a residential kennel at 2408 Needle Court within District 2. The applicant is requesting the CUP in order to house 6 pet dogs within an existing single-family dwelling in the Hillcrest Farm neighborhood. There were 2 speakers in opposition at the Planning Commission hearing who expressed concern with a commercial operation within a neighborhood. Once it was clarified that the ask was for a residential kennel and that would allow the property owner to house their 6 pet dogs, whereby the ordinance only allows you to keep 4 dogs without a conditional use permit. One of the speakers who was representing the HOA did withdraw their opposition at the hearing. After hearing from those speakers, the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval by a vote of 10-0. Item 6 is a request for a conditional use permit. This is for a car wash facility located at 4859 Dalton Drive, Unit A, within District 3. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a car wash facility within an existing unit of the building on the site. The proposed use will be a limited operation with only 1 vehicle being hand washed at a time. Except for signage, there are no proposed changes to the exterior of the site. Due to the site's location within the central business district of the Pembroke SGA, staff is recommending a 5-year limit on the conditional use permit should it be approved. Staff is unaware of any opposition to this request, and the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval by consent.
Yeah, Josh.
Just really quick question on this. I know this is 1 vehicle at a time. It doesn't look like a car wash is a primary use of this business, but I know in other instances, we've required or asked about protections for the stormwater drains.
We have that in here.
Okay, thank you.
Item 7, this is another conditional use permit request. This is for an automobile repair garage at 4912 Rutherford Road, Suite 101, within District 9. The applicant intends to operate a window tinting business within an existing suite on the site. While staff did receive a petition of opposition with 7 signatures, which expressed concern that additional auto repair services would be added to the site, once staff modified the recommended condition to state that the automobile repair would be limited to the application and removal of window tint, that petition of opposition was removed. After the hearing, we didn't have any speakers, and the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval on their consent agenda. Item 8 is a conditional use permit request for a short-term rental at 304 28th Street, Unit 210. This is in District 6. The applicant is seeking to operate a 2-bedroom short-term rental within the Playa Reina condominium complex. The condominiums have 42 units, 12 of which have previously approved CUPs for short-term rental use. Due to the historical exemption granted to Playa Reina, the unit is only required to provide 1 parking space. There was a previous complaint associated with this unit from 2022. However, that complaint was resolved when the rental advertisement was removed. Staff is unaware of any opposition to this request, and the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval on their consent agenda. Item 9 is another conditional use permit request for a short-term rental, this one at 401 21st Street, Unit 3 in District 6. This request is for a one-bedroom unit within the Seacrest condominiums. One parking space is required and provided on site. There are no prior zoning complaints associated with this unit, nor is it currently advertised. We did have one speaker in opposition at the Planning Commission hearing who noted that the condo's bylaws only permit short-term rental use during the summer months, and he was concerned that with this approval, that would allow the property owner to do rentals year-round. It was explained to that individual that even if the bylaws allowed operation during the summer months, the conditional use permit for short-term rental use would be required, and that it would ultimately be up to the condo association to enforce the bylaws. After hearing from the applicant and the speaker, the commission did vote to recommend approval by 9-0 vote. Item 10, this is the last STR request on the agenda for this evening. This is for property located at 2113 Atlantic Avenue, Unit 6B. Again, we're still in District 6. This request is for a two-bedroom unit within the Kamala condominiums. This is another site that does have that historical exemption for parking, so they're only required to provide one space. One zoning complaint was received in 2025 for operation without a CUP. However, that complaint was resolved when the listing was removed and this application was submitted. Staff is unaware of any opposition to this request, and the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval on their consent agenda. I will now turn it over to Kevin, and he will run through several of the ordinance amendments.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I think most of you already know Kevin Kemp accepted a position with the city of Chesapeake. If most of you all recall, the last time Kevin was here, his last day was right around when council first adopted the SDR regulations. And now we had a task force, and now he's leaving us right after the SDR recommendations. But I would also like to acknowledge that Hannah Sabo, who previously was with us and left to go to City Hampton, has came back and joined the city as well. So welcome. She left after the zoning is SDR thing as well, too.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor to serve this city and this council. The last 6 items you will consider this evening are all text amendments. The first 2 are regarding short-term rentals. If you'll remember, I briefed you in January on the short-term rental task force recommendations. They gave 20 recommendations. 6 of those involved code changes, and that is what you are hearing today. The first one is an ordinance to amend section 104, which is to change short-term rental violations from civil penalties to criminal. Most zoning violations are criminal. The only other one that is civil are sign violations. Back in 2020, this council changed short-term rentals from criminal to civil with the hopes of expediting the process, mostly because of state legislation, state rules. That hasn't been the case. The task force thought it more appropriate to change it back to criminal to be consistent with the other zoning violations and as more of a deterrent than a civil penalty. Planning Commission recommended approval of this text amendment with a 10-0 vote. The second item, this is more at the meat of the short-term rental ordinance. This is the changes, 5 things that are more towards the performance standards and requirements for short-term rentals. Just note, this ordinance incorporates the task force recommendations and then as they were modified at the Planning Commission hearing on July 9th.
Worth.
Go ahead and finish, Kevin, because I've got a change for council on this particular item.
Okay, excellent. As I mentioned, there were 20 recommendations. The 5 that are included in this item are regarding sign requirements, who can perform structural inspections, the frequency of those inspections, accepting attestations for registration and renewal, and reducing the parking requirement. As I said, the task force provided these recommendations. This ordinance was drafted as they wished, and then Planning Commission did make some modifications. The first modification was with the parking requirement. The task force looked at addressing parking for grandfathered properties and made the recommendation that grandfathered properties, only the number of parking that was required at the time of construction would be required if there is at least one parking space. The Planning Commission agreed with that and brought that requirement forward, however, expanded the parking requirement to change it for all STRs to one parking space for every 2 bedrooms, where currently it's 1 for every bedroom. And that would impact all STRs across the city. The second change that Planning Commission made was in signage. The task force felt it was important to have the property manager or owner's contact information on the required signage. They said that they wrote it so that it had the option to be on the sign. What Planning Commission did was change that to make it a requirement. So in the ordinance you're seeing tonight, it would be required that the property manager or owner's contact information be placed on the sign. The amendment also allows for additional signage that meets the requirements, Section 211. The way it was written before, the short-term rental sign was the only signage permitted on the property. This would open it up to make it similar to all other residential properties.
Keep going, and I'll come back.
All right. The next thing the task force looked at was who could perform structural inspections. The task force wanted to expand that scope and recommended that all Class A, B, or C contractors could perform the structural inspections and submit the report. The Planning Commission reviewed it and changed it so that only Class A and B contractors could perform this. They felt that Class C, as they were only licensed to perform work less than $10,000, were not qualified enough to perform this inspection. They also changed how frequently the inspections would be done. Task force wanted to change it to every 5 years. The Planning Commission brought forward a recommendation of every 3 years, however, 5 years for new construction. They also exempted all structures less than 30 inches from being needed in this report. For the years when an inspection is not required, they recommended, and this ordinance says, that attestations will be accepted for the renewal and registration process. This is also the case with the life safety inspections, which the ordinance changes from required every year to required every 5 years. Staff presented this ordinance amendment to the Transportation, Parking, and Pedestrian Subcommittee of RAC. They were supportive of the ordinance. However, they were supportive with the parking as it was originally recommended by the task force, which addressed the grandfathered properties and not changing it for all short-term rentals. Planning Commission did recommend approval of this ordinance by a 10-0 vote.
So thank you, Mayor Dyer. Mr. Kemp, thank you for the presentation. Can you go back to page 40? And just in general, colleagues, the task force, the short-term rental task force, which was 10 citizens, kind of 5 on each side, if you will. Not that there's sides, but in some degree there are. They spent a considerable amount of time. They came out with 20 recommendations. These are the last recommendations that would be required of us for our approval, changing the ordinance. So in this particular item in front of you is a revised ordinance. And if you look on the screen here, the 5 items, and I talked, this is Vice Mayor Wilson and myself today. You all, of course, we all vote on this tonight, but this is our recommendation. And before you is a revised ordinance that's not in your package over the weekend. If you look at the package, there are 3 versions. This is version number 1. So item number 1 up there for recommended amendments, we agree to number 1, updated sign requirements. Number 2, we do agree with the Planning Commission's removal of a Class C contractor and only including a Class A and B contractor to provide structural inspections. So we do agree with the Planning Commission there. We agree to number 3. However, number 4, we agree with the task force on version number 1 in your package, and that's incorporated in this revised ordinance that's in front of you. Essentially, it does recognize the grandfathered properties, that they can remain the same, the parking requirement can remain the same, but going forward, it's still a 1-for-1, 1 parking space for one bedroom and not one for every 2 bedrooms. So it's a little bit more stringent, keeps the requirement for parking at a relatively higher level than with the Planning Commission. And with all due respect, I think the Planning Commission was trying to save parking spaces in our public garages. So more on that later, but that's before you. And so I would ask that this be put in the record or ask for the vote tonight versus what's in our package.
Okay, before we get to Cash and Barbara, can I add a question? I had a concern with the inspections by the Class A and B people. Is there any type of consideration or prohibition that they be not allowed to bid on the job? You know, because that can in other words, a guy does an inspection on it. Oh yeah, no, by the way, here's my card. You know, that type of thing.
That's a good point. If that, I could be open to amending.
I think that would probably be something that we should consider separately. The Planning Commission did not consider anything related to that specific issue. So I think that's something that staff should investigate and should come forward, probably back through the Planning Commission as a separate consideration.
Okay. All right, yeah, I just wanted to at least bring it forward because, you know, these inspections obviously are critical. And, you know, and once again, we just want to avoid any potential advantage somebody might, oh, I'm going to be doing your inspection. Oh, by the way, I can fix it for you. You know, that type of thing. Cash?
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. This is your area, but you said the recommendations, which you guys went over, was allow Class A, B, and C.
Remove C.
Okay, so a little bit of a problem there. It's not my district. I'm working class. I've made it by certification. Just to consideration, if you remove Class C, you get more Class C, right? There are more opportunities for the labor, for the workforce with Class C. So if you remove that, I think, I worked in the oil and gas industry, laborer, for years, 15 plus years. And so if you if you remove that, that's going to create a slowage. So just, I don't know if the board recommended or considered that slowage.
So the reason for this is, and for the task force, is we had a backup of those applying for STRs, and staff needs to help me make sure I don't make a mistake here, but this is to open up for more contractors to come in and bid, and not bid, attest to the current condition of a property if it's suitable and safe for the public to use. So when you include Class A, Class B, and C, as you well say, it opens up for more folks to look at, contractors to look at existing STRs. And by the way, some of these STRs are not just only in District 6, they're citywide if they're grandfathered. So it could be some in your own district. So this is important for all of us. But so the Class C, so you had a difference. The task force included Class C. The Planning Commission came in and said that's maybe a little too much, being allowing too many that may not be as qualified. So they said limit it to A and B. I think there's an argument for both, as you say. Mr. Kemp, you want to comment on that?
No, I think you did a pretty accurate job. Planning Commission, when they discussed this, they were just looking at the scope of work that a Class A, B, and C typically does. So, Class C can only do jobs less than 10,000. And because of the importance of the structural safety report, they said, well, we want contractors that are able to do bigger jobs, that have that experience to be able to perform those reports.
It should be noted that Class C has to take the same test and do the same type of training as Class B. So I think we need to, on that note, I stand for the laborer, right? And so C needs to be included in that somehow, some way.
I'm open for discussion.
Let me just say this, Cash, this is just for the inspection. But then after that, with a recommendation, and then it would go out to a bid, and it would be an open bid, correct? Am I you know, speaking correctly?
This is for inspections.
Yeah, this is just for inspection.
Right, just don't exclude C. You have more C than you do B and A.
You had, I mean, the task force said A, B, and C, the planning commission said A and B, so you have a difference of opinion just between those two groups. I'm not in the business. I'd be open to discussion.
Josh and Jen, did you have something to?
I could be wrong. Maybe you can help Kevin or maybe one of the attorneys, but am I right in my recalling that Class C, there's no requirement for insurance for Class C contractors? And I know A and B have to have requisite insurance. I would just hate for, you know, an uninsured contractor or a contractor without an insurance mandate, you know, be, I guess, on the hook for a structural failure issue. So.
Right, and I'm not sure about the insurance of Class C, but they are all licensed through DPOR and the state. And I will say that the task force and planning commission did add in language that the contractor must be properly insured and qualified to perform such work. So that is part of the ordinance, that insurance component.
Okay, Jen and then Barbara.
Yeah, I'm trying to like quickly scan through the transcripts on the ABC, because in my mind, I don't understand limiting options. So why not just let the homeowner or the property owner decide which route they want to go, A, B, or C, and then just leave the pool open, give them choice. And that's a risk that that person will take if they're insured or uninsured. So I just don't understand. And I just leave it alone and leave the options for all three.
Okay, Hutch?
I think I might have been a part of this when we first started, and I was asking about the three levels, and I even met with y'all. I don't remember exactly. I felt like we were saying A, B, and C because we were saying that way they could keep the backlog down. And I believe I spoke with Ms. Henley about it as far as, you know, when we're having them happen down there, as long as they have all the recs, and that was what it was, is they had to take the same test. I don't remember about the insurance piece. That's the only thing. I was also told that a majority of them are going to fall under an A or B contractor when they're doing the work and the inspections and all that. Does that also feel pretty accurate?
Yes, it bases on the price of the job, but in Sandbridge, for instance, where this is, you know, where that backlog has really been a problem,
Right.
most of those construction projects, I would say, would exceed $10,000.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. And that, I mean, that is where most of, there's a couple, three people back here that have probably been on them that, you know, that's where our problems lie and where we've hurt the most people over the last 10 years is at Sandbridge. The salt, the air, the way it was attached, all that. So I'm okay with the A, B, and C. I feel like it'll help, but I'm keep looking at you two to go, is there a reason that the planning department didn't go with all three?
Well, again, this is not the planning department weighing in. This is the task force and planning commission.
Sorry. I
So
apologize.
just want to make that clear.
I thought we were in agreement on
Right.
on 1, 2, and A, B, and C here. So.
From a planning department standpoint, we just wanted to open up so that there were more professionals that could perform the inspection, and our initial thought was A, B, and C.
So A, B, and C then for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Chief.
Okay, Barbara.
We've got so many versions of this, I'm not sure what we're voting on tonight. We were just passed another version. Is this what we're voting on?
That is correct.
There will have to be,
Versions in here.
there are multiple versions in the agenda book, and there is another agenda or another version that was just passed out. Whether you do it out there or you do it by consent, you will have to identify the version that is being presented for approval. And so there is a choice to be made by the body as to which of the versions you are moving forward. Councilmember Remick has proposed moving forward the version that he just passed out, and that would be, a copy of that will be provided, signed by my office and provided to the clerk if that's the one that moves forward. If not, the motion will just have to be made to approve version 1, 2, or 3 from the agenda package, and then it would follow the normal approval process.
There's absolutely no time to compare these versions and know what we're voting on. I think this needs to be deferred until next meeting so we can see what we're voting on. There are the changes in here.
So I just,
I mean, it's
number,
not
number
redlined.
2, allow Class A, B, and C, that's what we're talking about. And then the number of parking spaces going forward, and those are the grandfathered now with the current amount of parking spaces allowed as per the current CUP for existing STRs. But going forward, we keep the 1 car per bedroom requirement. It's only 2 changes.
Those are the things that are in this that you just passed out.
Yes. Now, if we want to add all 3 Class A, B, and C contractors, Mark, I would think this would be an easy change to this for tonight.
Yes, we can make that change.
Okay.
Which item is that?
That would be number 2 under recommended amendments.
That change would be found in line 162 and 163. So it would say, or a licensed and insured Class A, B, or C contractor.
Thank you.
So this is item 17.
Yes.
There's no way in the world to compare this in this length of time. I can't vote on it tonight.
Okay, that's your prerogative.
So it's my direction to take this version and add Class C and pass that around for discussion and consideration by the council?
Yeah, is that okay with everybody else? Okay, let's do that. Let's see if we can get it on consent tonight.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I will go through these last 4 text amendments. I will note that all 4 of them are needed to provide consistency with recently adopted state legislation, and Planning Commission recommended approval 10-0 on all 4. This first one is an amendment to Section 104 regarding civil penalties. What it does is it increases the fine for convictions of violations regarding the storage of, or disposal of non-agricultural excavation material, waste, and debris, as well as for repeat short-term rental offenders that are located within multifamily residential properties. It also requires that a short-term rental violation in multifamily property be abated within 6 months of admitting the violation. The next item is an amendment to item section 106 of the zoning ordinance, which deals with the appeal period for a notice of violation. A typical zoning violation, unless otherwise stated, has a 30-day appeal period. What this would do would make notices of violation regarding the storage or disposal of non-agricultural excavation material, waste, and debris a 10-day. All right. The next item is amendment to Appendix C, the site plan ordinance, which updates references to the state code and the ENS management ordinance. What this does is it shortens the time frame in which to approve plans. The initial plan review is changed from 60 days to 40 days, and the resubmittal review is changed from 45 days to 30 days. It also extends the period following an approval to secure a building permit or commence use of the land. That is changed from 180 days to 5 years, and it increases the extension period for validity from 90 days to 1 year. It cleans up some references, as I said. Planning Commission recommended approval 10-0. And the last amendment is an amendment to Appendix B, the subdivision ordinance. What this amendment does is it shortens the time frame to approve subdivision plans. The initial review is shortened from 60 days to 45 days, and the resubmittal review is shortened from 45 to 30 days. It also extends the validity of the approval for a preliminary plat to 5 years. if the final plat is submitted within 1 year and the approval of the final plat is diligently pursued. It also cleans up references in the erosion and sediment management ordinance, and Planning Commission recommended approval 10-0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Best of luck to you.
this you. I'm going to move on really quick to the August 19th agenda. There's only 5 planning items for next week. The first, this is for 3 parcels off of Dam Neck Road within District 2. This is a conditional rezoning request from AG1, AG2 to conditional I1 light industrial. So the Food Bank of Southeastern Virginia and the Eastern Shore is seeking to rezone this 24-acre parcel to conditional I1 in order to develop a warehouse distribution facility for the food bank. This site is located within the 70 to 75 decibel noise zone, the greater than 75 decibel noise zone, and accident potential zone 2. The site is largely wooded today, except for a vacant single-family dwelling, as well as a 120-foot wide Vetco easement that bisects the site. The applicant is proposing an approximately 103,000 square foot facility, which will be located towards the back of the site. Due to the residential properties to the south and east, the applicant is retaining a large amount of the existing vegetation between the proposed building and the residents of Lansdowne Lakes to the east. Additional site improvements include 2 stormwater ponds, walking trails, and a small garden compost area towards the front of the site. The facility will operate Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. and will only be accessible to staff, volunteers, and community organizations that assist in distributing food to the community. The facility would not be open to the general public to come and receive food. The facility is proposed to be 2 stories with a max height of 35 feet. Staff did receive 2 letters of opposition to the request, and 3 speakers spoke in opposition at the Planning Commission hearing. Concerns raised included the loss of trees, increased traffic, and a view of a stormwater pond from the neighbor's backyard where currently they have a view of trees. To address some of those concerns, the applicant did make several changes following the Planning Commission hearing to include the addition of proffered tree preservation areas on the site where existing vegetation is proposed to remain. They reconfigured that BMP that is located behind the facility to have a larger or a wider width of existing vegetation that can remain to provide additional buffering to those residents to the east. They are also proposing a no ingress egress easement along the stub street of Lanesboro Drive. That's what's outlined in that red rectangle on the plan there. And then they are proposing to paint the side and rear of the building in a darker earth tone, the thought being it wouldn't be quite as visible through the trees for those adjacent residences. After hearing from the speakers and the applicant, the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval by a vote of 10-0. Item 2 is a request to conditionally rezone 6 parcels along 34th Street within District 6 to conditional A24 apartment district. The subject parcels are located within the resort strategic growth area and lie within the Sea Pines Station neighborhood. It is the applicant's intent to demolish the existing dwellings on the site in order to develop 20 multifamily units. I will note the current conditions today, there are several encroachments within the right-of-way, including many structures. All of that is proposed to be demolished with this project. Although the site does lie within the 70 to 75 decibel noise zone, where residential uses are considered incompatible, since the parcels are already zoned for residential use, they can be redeveloped for that residential use as long as the number of units are reduced by 5%. That is above what, or a 5% reduction from what could be developed by the current zoning today. This proposal was presented to the Joint Review Process Group, who found the proposal to be in compliance with Article 18. The 20 units will be spread across 6 multifamily buildings. The proposed layout does require several deviations to be approved with this request to allow a 5-foot rear yard setback, an 18-foot side yard setback for the structures, which would be reduced to a 13-foot setback for the balconies, and then a 12-foot front yard setback. In addition to those deviations, an administrative variance to the Public Works Design Standards Manual would be required to be granted by Public Works, since the required 25 feet of separation between the driveway aprons and the Arctic Avenue intersection. This is for Unit 11 and Unit 1 cannot be met with this proposal. Each unit is proposed to be 3 stories with a maximum height of 42 feet and will contain both a 2-car garage and a 2-car driveway. This proposal was presented to the Resort Advisory Commission's Planning, Design, and Review Committee, who expressed concern with the number of trees being removed for the project, as well as the lack of adherence to the voluntary Sea Pine Station design guidelines. In addition to the letter from PDRC, staff received 8 letters of support and 12 letters of opposition. All of those letters of opposition were expressing concerns with illegal STR use currently on the property. There were a total of 6 speakers at the Planning Commission hearing, 4 in support of the project and 2 in opposition. The speakers in opposition, again, expressed concern with the removal of the trees and lack of conformance with the Sea Pine Station design guidelines. After hearing from the speakers, the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval of the request by a vote of 8-1 with 1 abstention. Item 3, this is another conditional rezoning request. This is for parcel northwest of 3792 Princess Anne Road within District 10, sorry, typo here. Just making sure it was right on the slide. So in January of this year, the City Council did declare this roughly 3-acre parcel to be in excess of the city's need and authorized an option agreement to be executed with the Virginia Beach Community Development Corporation, or VBCDC. VBCDC intends to rezone the site to conditional B4 in order to develop 60 multifamily units as well as office space for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI. All 60 units will be attainable units reserved for households making less than 80% of the area median income. Additionally, 9 of those units would be reserved for persons with mental health diagnosis. Due to the unique shape of the parcel, the applicant is seeking a deviation to the 15-foot landscape buffer that's required along the northern property line adjacent to the residences to the north. I will note there were slight changes made after the Planning Commission hearing. The applicant moved that middle building as well as 2 dumpsters inward to the site. So the only portion of the buildings that do not meet that 15-foot wide buffer, or that encroaches into that buffer, is a small corner of that front building along Princess Anne Road. We didn't receive that plan in time for the glimpse to be presented, but a hard copy was passed out to your seats earlier today. And it's supposed to be here. Another revision that you'll see on that plan there, they have included a shared use path along Princess Anne Road in accordance with the recommendations of the active transportation plan. So the proposed buildings will be a combination of 2- and 3-story. The 2-story buildings will be 30 feet in height, the 3-story 43 in height, and then that office space for NAMI is proposed for the ground floor. Staff did receive 13 letters of support and 6 letters of opposition to this request. Additionally, there were 3 speakers at the Planning Commission hearing, 1 in support and 2 in opposition. Those in opposition noted concern with safety and then the loss of trees on the site. After discussion, the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval by 10-0. There's that plan there. So you can see the line across Princess Anne Road. That's the shared use path they're proposing to install.
Can I ask a silly question?
Sure.
Does that sidewalk connect to the other sidewalk?
Okay.
Michael. Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things, and I know we'll have opportunities in the future to discuss this, but there has been some inaccurate information advanced about this project that I just want to use this opportunity to clear up. First of all, NAMI is a nonprofit organization that provides peer-to-peer, family-to-family support for people who experience mental health challenges. So it's not they do not provide direct counseling services. It's more of an advocacy organization that's principal role is to eliminate and reduce the stigma associated with people who experience mental health challenges. And it's also a resource. So for example, if a family has a child who's diagnosed with a serious mental health condition, they may not know what to do next. And and NAMI is a resource for that. So it'll pair someone who's experiencing mental health challenges with someone who also has experienced those challenges and may continue to live with those challenges and has negotiated them with some success. Same for families. It's nice for a mom and dad to talk to a mom or dad, or a grandma to talk to another grandparent. So it's family-to-family, peer-to-peer services. That's, I think, an important distinction. The other is that the people who are living there with mental health conditions, it's not a mental health hospital, it's not a mental institution. It's people who are stable, but who experience challenges in their lives, who are living with a mental health condition. And not unlike every neighborhood has people, in fact, 1 in 5 adults are living with mental health conditions. And so these are our neighbors, our friends, our family members, or ourselves who are embedded and integrated into every neighborhood. And I want to make sure that every chance I get that those distinctions are made clear and aware for the public who's watching, and that it becomes part of this discourse for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone else?
All right, moving now to item 4. This is a conditional use permit request for 405 Kings Point Court within District 3, and this is a request for a residential kennel. More specifically, the applicant is seeking approval to keep 13 pet dogs within their residence. No kennel or breeding is proposed as a part of this request. According to animal control, though complaints have been received for this site, they have been unfounded. Staff did receive 2 letters of opposition to this request, and there were 2 speakers at the Planning Commission hearing, 1 in support and 1 in opposition. Those in opposition expressed concern with the number of dogs proposed, as well as excessive barking on the site. I do want to note that if this is approved, staff is recommending a condition that as the dogs leave the residence, be that they pass away, get rehomed, what have you, that the ultimate number of dogs that would be permitted under this conditional use permit would be 6. After much discussion, the Planning Commission did vote to recommend denial of this request by 9-1.
No, I would love it, please.
Yeah, so, I guess, we get these first time things while you're sitting in the seats, right? And this is one for me, is like, I was a little bit like, why did this come to us? I thought we had a code that took care of this, is like 5 dogs, right? That's 4. 4, and then can't you get an exemption?
If you want more than, I don't know about an exemption, if you want more than 4, you have to have a conditional use permit for a residential
so
kennel.
this is what we're doing, but they've just gone way past 4, 5,
Correct.
6, 7.
Correct, they moved here in September.
Well, I caught part of this discussion. I saw this. You got a yard, you got a fence in the front yard to keep some, and you got a fence in the backyard to keep some. I guess just give me a little bit more of why we're entertaining this. Is this is a good idea? It just doesn't feel it to me.
I think from a staff standpoint and the Planning Commission too seem to be conflicted. These are new residents to the city, moved here in September, unaware of the requirement. And it was tough to say, you can only have 6 dogs. You have to choose, 7 to get rid of. That's why we had the condition that ultimately we would like you to get down to a maximum of 6 dogs. But it is definitely something that Planning Commission certainly wrestled with in their conversations.
Yeah. So then did I also hear though that there are, not that they're breeding, which are we going to guarantee that they're spayed and neutered so there is no breeding? How are you going to control that many dogs?
We do have a condition that would require that. And it's our understanding that they're working towards getting all of them spayed and neutered, and they've been.
And then wasn't there some puppies involved? Isn't that how this all started at the beginning?
So it's, what we were told by the applicant is that when they moved here with 13 dogs. So they range in age from, I think it was about 5 years old. The mother was 12 or 13, but I don't think there are any puppies.
Okay, all right.
Michael.
Thank you. Well, I have a little additional context for you, council member. And I watched this planning commission hearing 3 times. It was one of the most unique planning commission hearings I've ever seen in my time here. And for me, I know you all share this too, based on the time that I've spent working with you. You strive to seek a balance, strike a balance between the needs of all the disparate needs that exist among people. If you have a pet, how much you love them. And I don't think anyone at this table wants to be responsible for separating someone from their pets they love, even though 13 seems like a lot to me. But I'm sure in talking to them that they love all 13 of those dogs as much as you would love your 1 or 2 or 4. And yet, we also have an obligation to the neighbors who live there, that they have peaceful enjoyment of their property. So my goal in this, in speaking with the applicant, speaking with various neighbors, and I have, is to attempt to find a mutually agreeable solution. Maybe not everyone will like it, but that's what I'm working toward, and I want to share that with you now. Or at least give it a shot. Maybe not get there, maybe, hopefully we will, but at least give it a shot. They're little dogs, they're Chihuahua Yorkie mixes, which is different than having 13 Great Danes.
Yes, it is.
But it's still a lot. The dogs do need to be fixed, and I think they're aware of that. Also, another variable in this is that the applicants may be moving. And so we're not really clear about what those next steps are. But we have identified and worked with planning to create a list of conditions, and I thank you all for your support with that. I also want to thank Chairwoman Quaylar and Commissioner Anderson for really spending time after the meeting to try to work toward an agreeable solution. We'll hear more next week, but we are working toward an attempt at peace in the valley on Kings Point Court.
Okay.
And
I'm
we're
gonna
going to give it a
get to
shot.
Yeah, let's, let it play out.
All right, good. Way to go, Michael. Okay,
Just a
anything
couple more
else?
items. So item 5, this is a conditional use permit request for a bulk storage yard at 5033 Admiral Wright Road in District 4. The applicant intends to store landscape materials, vehicles, and equipment on the site, utilizing solely the existing impervious area. The ordinance does require bulk storage yards to be screened on all sides with a privacy fence and landscaping. However, the applicant did request deviation to the landscaping requirement along the south and east property lines. Due to the site's location within the Pembroke SGA, the staff is recommending that 5-year time limit on the conditional use permit. While staff did recommend that the existing pole sign on the site be removed as a part of this request and that a maintenance-free or a low-maintenance fence be installed, the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval of the request with the modifications to allow the existing pole sign to remain, allow the installation of a wood fence, and then to require landscaping on the north, south, and west property lines, but allow that deviation along the eastern property line. Staff did not receive any opposition to this request, and the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval. Lastly, this isn't a Planning Commission item, but I wanted to run through it really quick. This was an update to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area Ordinance that is on the August 19th hearing. This information was sent to you in a CCSR recently, so I'm just going to kind of touch on the high points really quick. This is in response to amendments to the Virginia Administrative Code that was adopted in 2021 that required the local ordinance to be updated by September of 2025. So that just runs through the changes that are proposed with this amendment. I know we've provided several briefing or CCSRs to you, so I won't run through each one of those. Their adoption of this ordinance would align the city's ordinance with the state and then would remap the city's RPA to align with state regulations and eliminate the variable width buffer outside of the state designated RPA. And this just runs through the public outreach that was conducted as a part of this to include briefings to various boards and commissions, 2 public engagement meetings, and then a 60-day online comment period. The CBPA board did vote to recommend approval of this. We haven't received any opposition. And that concludes my briefing. I'll stand by if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, folks, let's get into liaison reports, discussion, agenda review, and then we'll get into close. Okay, anybody work?
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Just a quick announcement. My community meeting for District 6 is tomorrow night at Virginia Beach Middle School. Doors open at 6 o'clock. The meeting promptly starts at 6:30. We have great presentations on emergencies and scamming, and then the economic development around the convention sports. I'll be talking about the master plan there for the Central Beach. So District 6 community meeting tomorrow night at VB Middle School, 6:30 p.m. starts. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
This gets a little complicated, and I apologize. If you remember, we have one of our bond referendum program, stormwater programs is the Marsh Restoration Project in Back Bay. And if you remember, that is now at a standstill because we're not able to get the permit. And we decided that we would ask the General Assembly if they would carve out an exception for this project. The reason it's not able to get permits is because when they looked at the area, they found some submerged aquatic vegetation, and their regulations would not allow them to allow this project to go forward because it might damage the SAV, and so we're at a stop. This is an extremely important project because it's the only possibility we have for dealing with the flooding in the Back Bay watershed, which is the Albemarle watershed, and about 2/3 of the city drains to the Albemarle, to the south. So we're not talking about a little part of the city, we're talking about 2/3, and this involves some of your districts as well. We had a meeting 2 Wednesday nights ago, July 30th, because I had asked if we would do something to explain to the public why we were not able to go forward with this project. Because it had been our intent that, or the last time it had been published, a time frame, we thought if we got our permit by November 24, we would be able to go out with the bid of the project at the beginning of this year, and we should be about ready to start construction. But we can't go out for a bid until we have a permit, so we're really at a standstill. So we had this session, and it was very well attended with the public to try to explain what's going on with this or not going on. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out to be really what it needed to be. We started out with some concerns by some property owners around the staging area, what impact it might have with their, or some of the construction might have with their bulkheads. Well, that has nothing to do with the marsh part of it. That's the staging area. But that got everything off on sort of a negative discussion. And then when it got to this question of SAVs, and that's why it couldn't go forward, then the conversation got tied up in the health of the bay. And SAVs, of course, are good for the bay and the water quality and so forth, but that's another element in Back Bay. This marsh restoration project is the only thing we see that we can feasibly do to deal somewhat with this flooding problem in Back Bay. And again, I say this is very complicated because there are not very many places in the world that are governed by wind tides rather than lunar tides. In Back Bay, it's by the wind. If it's from the south, it blows the water in. When the wind shifts to the north, it blows it out. And that can happen with or without a rain. And I think part of the problem too is that it's been several years now since we've had a really bad time with the flooding. It sort of goes in cycles, and people have kind of forgotten just what it can be like. But anyway, we did this study, and I hope you all have a copy of it. It's very readable. It's initial feasibility assessment of alternatives for flood risk reduction in Back Bay. And they looked at all possible things that we had thought of that we might be able to do and ranked them and rated them and so forth. And the one that they came up with, which had the best chance of getting a permit and getting done, is this marsh restoration. Because what has happened over the past years and why it's getting worse is the marshes are eroding. And when the marshes were there, more than they are now, the water had something to block it. In the last 50 years or so, they say we've lost about 2,000 acres of marsh that have eroded. And therefore, instead of 2,000 acres with marshland, we've got 2,000 acres of open water, and that water can go quickly. And so this project says if we can restore some of those marshes and rebuild some of these marshes, it will help slow down the water. It's not going to get rid of it, but it would slow it down, and then maybe the wind will shift to the north and it will prevent some of the flooding. This is a very complicated project, and I apologize for trying to explain it so quickly. But anyway, we kind of got down to the intent of this project. The intent of this project is to try to control the flooding, to try to slow the water down so it won't flood as badly. But as I said, the conversation at that meeting just went in all different directions. And it occurred to me, this project may not be able to get a permit. What are we going to do then? There's no other opportunity. Well, the first thing I think we need to do is make sure that all of our state legislators have a copy of this report as quickly as we can get it to them, because they really need to see the extent of this work and how important this is to be able to do anything to the southern part of the city. I'm wondering, okay, we don't know when we're going to have the next flood. It doesn't have to rain. It can be on a beautiful day like today, but after a long, prolonged wind of the south, and we start to get this flooding. People are going to look at us and say, why haven't you done something? And let me tell you, it's not a matter of digging ditches. That would only allow more water in. This project is so important. I think we really need to do some ongoing work with the public, explaining all of this. I could see that at that meeting because it's so confusing. But there are things that we need to talk with the public too about what if we don't get this permit and what if we can't do anything? For example, we need to maybe talk with people down there in these flooding areas and make sure they've got insurance, flood insurance, that they know that, I mean, we need to look at this as if we can't do this. Another thing that I've really become much more aware of is the impact that these flooding periods had on the schools. When it gets to a certain point, the school buses can't run. They can't go pick up the kids. The kids can't go to school in those areas where it's flooded. If their parents do get them to school, how are they going to get home? So when we have these flooding issues, we have a lot of absences with kids in school. There needs to be a plan. We need to really start looking at this, because even if we do get this permit, it's going to be 2 or 3 years before we can even begin doing anything. I think we really have to figure out how we're going to address some of these flooding problems in that area and some of the problems that are caused with the flooding, in addition to being able to try to do the project if we can get the permit for it. I came away from that meeting very, very disturbed, because I wonder if the General Assembly is willing to get involved in anything quite this controversial. That's why they need this data. But we did say in the past that we would begin meeting with our legislators more. I think we used to always meet with them when we had a legislative package. I really think we need to do that because on everything, not just this issue, but to make sure that we're answering their questions and giving them the knowledge that they need to have. But we really need to work on this, because if we don't get this project, there's nothing that we can do that became anywhere close to, I mean, this was the thing that they decided would have the easiest way of getting a permit. But they looked at, building a new outlet of a pump pumping the water out, of an inverted siphon. Those things, they all said were extremely expensive, would never get a permit, can't get done. There's just not much we can do. And I just want you all to know that this is a major issue. I look at our flood bond referendum projects, and so many in the northern part of the city have now been constructed and are done. The ones in the southern part of the city can't even get off the ground. And we don't know, we've had a long cycle with our flood, and we're overdue, and it can happen anytime. Happens most often in the spring, so maybe we've escaped it for this year. But it's going to happen again, and people are going to look at us and say, why haven't you done something? So I really think we need to start more communication with the community, with our legislators at the General Assembly and others, and with you all, so that you understand this issue, what the problems are, and try to do something that puts us in the best position going forward.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Mrs. Henley, and it's a frustrating thing. We got to try to expedite a little bit to get into a very important close. But that being said, there are a lot of frustrations. It's totally out of our control. And I think if the public has to know one thing, this is the same situation that's going on with NIMO. And, District 2 does have some unique characteristics down there that lends itself to this type of thing. But, be assured we will be addressing and get explanations out. Amelia.
Okay, thank you. 2 announcements. I did go to the Military Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting, and we're pleased to share that they did get some great federal funds that will help repair some of the housing for military and for developing the child development centers. And they also were very interested in our VA 250 and said however there can be of help, I should pass that along. And I told them that, I was one of the council liaisons for that. The other important thing, I am having an in-person meeting for District 4 committee meeting on Monday, August 25th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Williams Farm Recreation Center, 5252 Learning Circle. And some of our discussions will be the 2025 referendum, public safety, the Burton Station community, especially for the strategic plan. We want to update this group about what's happening with Bayside 6 and joining with the elementary school at Betty T.F. Williams. So we're going to have city public school staff there. And also we do have a university in our midst, which is Virginia Wesleyan University, and President Dr. Scott Miller will also be in attendance. So this should be an exciting meeting, and we invite anyone to come and enjoy.
Okay, thank you, Cash.
Thank you.
Quickly, want to thank you. The library board, we did something that was pretty amazing. We had our board meeting on Zoom, and I bring that to your attention because I still work, and so I'm grateful that if any of our meetings are going to Zoom, and according to how we have to do it with the lawyers, and we have to make sure it's all in line with our requirements. That was new and exciting. We had a quorum, so you have to make sure to have a quorum. See, am I saying it correctly? And so with that being said, long story short, that's it. Just want to let people know that the library board is always up front.
You got it. Okay, Worth, please.
Please indulge me. This is the revised item number 12 that we discussed earlier in planning on STRs, including the Class C contractor A, B, and C, and the one-bedroom.
Call this revised number 2.
Okay.
Revised number 2.
There we go. Okay.
This will be voted on.
Let's get into agenda review.
Thank you.
Okay, there are no speakers. So, on ordinance and resolutions, is everybody okay with these? Anybody want to pull or talk about it again?
Everybody okay with ordinance and resolution?
I was thinking we could make some of the firefighters stand up here and ask them some questions just to bother them, but other than that.
I want to make a statement on a couple of the ordinances, but
Well, I was going to call on you. So under ordinance and resolutions?
yeah, number 1 and number 3.
Okay. Okay, I can call on you to do that. Also, when we get to planning for number 12, I'd like for you to explain the changes.
Okay.
Okay, under planning, number 1, Kevin Sullivan, that is in District 2.
That's fine.
Number 2, Andrea Morris, and that is in District 3.
Okay.
Number 3, Hall of Virginia Beach, that is in District 6.
Okay.
Number 4, Virginia Beach Residences in District 4.
Right. We're going to do a deferral. I've been back and forth with the developers and so forth. And as you heard me mention earlier about looking at some attainable or affordable housing, and I just got a response, if they could be given a 30-day deferral as they're looking at this and speaking with the equity department, because I felt it was important.
And what date would that be?
30-day would be,
You want to say the next one?
Be the third week in September?
September 16th.
September 16th? Okay, so we can put that to September 16th, and I told them that would be okay with me because they didn't have a final answer.
Good idea. Number 5, Jeffrey Barrett, District 2.
I need one of those terms.
Number 6, LeVar Hyman, District 3.
That's okay.
Number 7, Tent Daddy, District 9.
I don't know anything about it. Okay. by
Number
me.
8, Melinda Lyon, District 6.
Consent, yes.
Number 9, JE and JK Limited, District 6.
Consent, yes, thank you.
10, Debbie Anderson, District 6.
Yes, consent.
Number 11, the ordinance to end the ordinance for short-term rentals on the civil penalties. Number 12, I'll have Mr. Remick talk about the changes for revised number 2.
$20, yeah.
Is everybody else all right with that?
12.
Number 12?
It wasn't number 2, that's the number of events. That's why I say this is confusing, I think. I think it was number 17 that you needed. Item 17, isn't it? Where there's a change.
Line, yeah, 162.
It's item K-12.
Line 162, that's in item 17.
Yeah, adding Class C.
And we'll get Mr. Remick to speak to that. Number 13, the ordinance to amend with the civil penalties again. 14 is the ordinance, the notice of violation, the appeal period. And the other 4 are all about the erosion and stormwater that are state-related. To line up our code with the state.
I have a question. Did you approve, Councilman Remick, about the change for civil penalties for criminal? You didn't respond.
We didn't make any changes to that particular part of,
So you approve it?
yes,
Okay,
I do. It's-
right, we didn't,
That's for everybody, not just District 6.
okay.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, at this point, the chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions from the open meeting allowed by section 2.23711A Code of Virginia as amended for the following reasons. Legal matters, consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to section 2.23711A8 Atlantic Park. Legal matters, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefings in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiator or litigating posture of the public body pursuant to section 2.23711A7, and that's Atlantic Park and Holloway et al., City of Virginia Beach, and publicly held property discussions or considerations of the acquisition of real property for public purpose and disposition of public held property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiation strategy of the public body pursuant to section 2.23711A3, District 6, District 2. Public contract, discussion award of public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, discussion of scope of such contract where discussion in open session would adversely affect the bargaining position negotiation strategy of the public bodies pursuant to section 2.23711A29, Rudy Luke Partnership with Virginia Beach Gentlemen, Project Ramp, and then personnel matters, discussion or considerations of interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining or resignation of public officers, appointees, and employees, public body pursuant to section 2.23711A1, and that would be council, boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, and appointees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Belushi has stepped out. Councilor Cummings.
Aye.
Councilor Henley. Councilor Hutchison.
Aye.
Councilor Jackson Gary.
Aye.
Councilor Rowland.
Aye.
Councilor Ross Hammond.
Aye.
Councilor Rouse.
Aye.
Councilor Sherman.
Aye.
Councilor Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Dyer.
Aye.
10-0.
Okay, we are recessing. Everyone, as we start our meeting, I call this meeting to order, and we're going to ask a dear friend of ours, Pastor Eugene Cowan from the New Light Full Gospel Baptist Church, to come and give the invocation. If you are willing and able, please stand.
Let's bow for a moment of prayer. To our God, who is the source of our wisdom, justice, and peace, we come together in gratitude for the city of Virginia Beach, for its vibrant communities, natural beauty, and resilient spirit. We're thankful for all who live, work, and serve and lead here. We ask, God, for you to guide the mayor and this council as they carry out the important work of governance. May they lead with integrity, listen with compassion, and act with courage. We offer prayers for the safety of our city as our children prepare to return to school. We pray that every neighborhood may be a place of peace, every school a place of learning and care, and every home a sanctuary for those who live within it. We recognize and honor those who work daily to keep our city safe, our first responders, our police officers, our firemen, the public servants, and the community protectors. And we lift up our hopes for economic strength and opportunity. May businesses thrive, jobs be abundant and fair, innovation continue to grow, and may every resident have a chance to prosper and contribute meaningfully to our shared future. We recognize the importance of accessibility to affordable housing, and may no one in our city be left without a safe place to live. May our policies and planning reflect compassion, equity, and foresight to the generations to come. So God, we offer blessings for our leaders today. For Mayor Robert Bobby Dyer, may he be guided by wisdom, humility, and purpose. For our Vice Mayor, Rosemary Wilson, may her leadership bring clarity and strength. For all the members of our Virginia Beach Council, David Hutchins, Barbara Henley, Michael Berlucci, Dr. Amelia Ross Hammond, Worth Remick, Cal Cash Jackson Green, Stacy Cummings, Joshua Schuman, and Dr. Jennifer Rouse. May each of you be granted discernment, strength, and dialogue shared in purpose as you make decisions that will impact the lives of many. In this chamber and beyond, may your work be guided by the spirit of justice, unity, recognizing that while we may come from different traditions and backgrounds, we are united in the commitment and the common good to raise up our city of Virginia Beach. May we dwell in our city with prosperity in our communities and dignity for every voice. Let every heart say, amen.
Amen.
And do me one more favor. Yeah. Just look at the person next to you and say, I love you.
I love you.
Okay, now look at the other person, say, don't get jealous.
Yeah.
I got enough love for you too.
God, Pastor Cowan, I can honestly say, Semper Fi, my brother.
Semper Fi, hoorah.
Very nice.
Oh, wait a minute. Ooh. Folks, at this point, if we could please observe a moment of silence for all of those who have paid the ultimate price. Thank you. Now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you all. Madam Clerk, do we have a roll call?
Yes, Your Honor, all present.
Okay, could I ask, in terms of the closed session certification, we will be reconvening after this meeting, and we will be certifying at the close of that session. Do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of the informal and formal session of July 1, 2025, and the informal and formal session of July 8th, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
The vote is open. Vice Mayor Wilson, may I have your vote, please? Yes. Thank you. By a vote of 11-0, you've approved the minutes as submitted.
Okay, thank you. Now a public hearing for the change of polling location for precinct 0093 at Enoch Baptist Church Life Center to Good Samaritan Episcopal Church.
There are no speakers, sir.
Okay, at this point, we'll read the script for the speakers. I want to remind everyone that the City Council speaker policy that allows certain representatives of groups to speak for 10 minutes applies only to planning items. All other speakers, whether speaking individually or on behalf of a group, will have up to 3 minutes to speak on a single item. Speakers are reminded that comments during the formal session of the meeting must be limited to the subject of the item that is being considered by the council at the time you are called. For items placed on the consent agenda, the speaker will have up to 3 minutes to address any single item. If a speaker wishes to address multiple consent agenda items, the speaker will have a cumulative total of 6 minutes to address those items. Again, the speaker must limit his or her comments to the subject matter of the items they have signed up to address. And finally, I call upon all speakers and all persons in the chamber to be civil in their discussion and decorum. Whatever views you hold and wish to express, the City Council wants to hear from you and to ensure that all viewpoints and all persons are respected. The best way to do this is for all of us to strive for civility and respect. Do we have any one-item speakers?
Yes, sir. Craig Henson is speaking via WebEx, and he would like to speak on J7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Mr. Henson, you are unmuted and may begin. Mayor, just 1 second, please.
Hello, City Council. Can you hear me okay? This is Craig Henson. I'd like to thank City Council for the reasonable accommodation under Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, for the purposes of effective communication for a person with disabilities by having WebEx and allowing them to call in and communicate with.
Mayor, unfortunately, I guess we're having the technical difficulties.
Okay, we'll take a minute here.
Can everybody hear me okay? My City Council, my name is Craig Henson. I'd like to thank Council for a Title II ADA accommodation, as well as Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act for having WebEx to allow me to speak. I'm trying to speak on the compensation of
of the city manager, city attorney, all the members named. First off, I feel the city clerk should have compensation because she's the only person in the city of Virginia Beach government when I've asked for an ADA accommodation who has not committed discrimination. The city manager is currently committing Title II ADA and Section 504 discrimination against vulnerable citizens of this city. The city attorney as well is committing ADA Title II as well as Section 504 discrimination based upon disability, as well as deliberate indifference to serious medical needs. Hello? Hello? Can anybody hear me?
Mr. Henson, if you can hear us, unfortunately, we're having difficulties. We're trying to work through them.
I appreciate you trying to work through it. Thank you.
So he can hear us.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Mayor, it seems like there's a control issue. I'm not sure where the issue is, but it seems like they're not able to work this out.
Okay, and I think at this point, we just have to move forward.
Thank you for trying.
Provide his
Thank you for trying.
I think since we can see his comments, if he's willing to deliver them, understanding that we're only seeing the closed caption and not hearing him, we should give the speaker that opportunity so that the council can have real-time knowledge of his position before they take a position on the vote.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that and
Okay,
just inform him
so,
of that.
Mr. Henson, we're going, if you'll begin your comments, even though we can't hear your audio, we can read it through closed captioning. So
Thank you.
begin your time, which you have 6 minutes.
Thank you. City Council, I want to thank you for the reasonable accommodations that you just gave. I'm speaking on 789, compensation for city manager. With that, I don't feel the city manager requires compensation. The city of Virginia Beach government receives federal funding. Federal funding could be going to this compensation, where the city manager currently right now, and it's by pattern and practice, been committing Title II Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, discrimination based upon disability. The city attorney does not need compensation because your compensation, you get federal money, because he also, I have not been able to speak to the city attorney, Mark Stiles, since May 12th of 2023. That right there is proof of ADA Title II violation, as well as Section 504 discrimination based upon disability. The city attorney and the city manager are making me, this disabled person, protected under federal law, right. I have specific disabilities that affect my writing. That is discrimination based upon disability, Title II ADA, and Section 504. The city clerk is the only person in the city government who, when I requested an ADA accommodation, never questioned me, never disgruntled me, never destroyed my dignity. In fact, just did everything properly, which is great because she probably knows less about the ADA than the city attorney or the city manager. City clerk deserves compensation for following through with proper ADA and 504 procedures. I'll reiterate that so closed caption can get it. The city clerk deserves compensation. The real estate assessor, I don't feel deserves compensation because it seems to me that home assessments have been going up, which means taxes are going to go up, which means we're going to pay higher taxes also while now funding more compensation for real estate assessor, which, by the way, there's a prong to that because there's a thing called the Board of Equalization, and one of the members of the Board of Equalization, Philip Hines, who's appointed by the circuit court, is not a freeholder of the city per the city charter. I am a freeholder of the city because I own my home free and clear. Philip Hines has admitted he's got a mortgage. So someone with a mortgage, I can prove in several different ways of law, of fact too, does not have the same rights as me as a freeholder. Therefore,
Appreciate
the whole
patience. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay.
Looks like that's it.
Okay, wait a minute. Kelly, he's got a few minutes. I know we interrupted.
Mayor, he's finished.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, sir, for your patience with us. Appreciate it, but you did get your message out. Okay, at this point, Madam Vice President, or Vice Long afternoon.
Thank you for the promotion. I'm going to read this, and prior to voting, though, if the council would allow Mr. Remick, he has a few comments he wanted to make on a couple of items, and then we'll have the vote. Is that okay?
Okay.
Under ordinance and resolutions, number 1 is a resolution to request Ocean Front retailers voluntarily remove indecent and vulgar T-shirts from storefronts, and that's requested by the city council. Number 2 is a resolution to move the November 11th, 2025 regular meeting of city council to November 25th, 2025. Number 3 is the ordinance to declare city-owned property at 302 22nd Street to be in the excess of the city needs and authorize the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement for the sale of the property to 21st Street Properties, LLC, for the development of the property into a multi-use development project. Number 4 is the ordinance to amend City Code Section 2-385, reapplication fee for annual short-term rental permits. Number 5 is the ordinance to amend City Code Sections 12-41, 12-13, 12-43.1, and 1249.1 rate fire prevention code. Number 6 is the ordinance to amend City Code Sections 21-230 rate traffic calming. Number 7 is the ordinance rating of compensation of the city manager effective July 1st, 2025. Number 8 is the ordinance to the compensation of the city attorney effective July 1st, 2025. Number 9 is the ordinance to the compensation of the city clerk effective July 1st, 2025. Number 10 is the ordinance to the compensation of the city real estate assessor effective July 1st, 2025. Number 11 is the ordinance for the compensation of the city auditor effective July 1st, 2025. Number 12 is a resolution to appoint Rebecca Bazansky to the position of Deputy City Clerk 2 effective August 7th, 2025. Number 13 is the ordinance to extend the date for satisfying the conditions in the matter of William F. Daddio and Jean A. Gentry reclosure of 1/2 of an unnamed, unimproved alley adjacent to the rear of 817 Vanderbilt Avenue for Croatan. Number 14 is the ordinance to authorize temporary encroachments into city-owned property known as Lake Bradford and into the 100-foot city-owned strip of land surrounding Lake Bradford at the rear of 4973 Athens Boulevard as constructed and retain a proposed pier, walkway, and kayak launch, covered dock, landscaping, and riprap with 12 granite boulders and quar log, and that's in District 9. Number 15 is the ordinance to authorize temporary encroachments into a portion of city-owned property known as Island Lake West at the rear of 2417 Broad Bay Road, reconstruct and maintain a vinyl bulkhead, 2 wood piers, and wood wharf with 4 piers and a boat lift, and that's in District 8. Number 16 is the ordinance to authorize temporary encroachments into a city-owned right-of-way known as Haygood Point Road at the front of 4804 Haygood Point Road to construct and maintain a paved path to the front door, and that's in District 9. Number 12 is the ordinance to accept and appropriate $150,000 from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management to the FY 2025-26 Emergency Communications and Citizen Services operating budget, Ray, equipment to improve 911 call processing. Number 18 is ordinance to accept and appropriate $75,000 from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management to the FY 2025-26 Emergency Management Operating Budget, Ray, purchase of 2 mobile security camera trailers. Number 19 is ordinance to accept and appropriate $14,884 from the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services to the Virginia Beach Sheriff's Office Grant Consolidated Fund, Ray, support wellness and resiliency initiatives for the Sheriff's Office personnel. Number 20 is ordinance to accept and appropriate $12,121 from the Virginia Department of Criminal Services to the FY 2025-26 Commonwealth Attorney's Operating Budget, Ray, Victims Witness Grant.
Open a public hearing on planning.
Number 1 is the Kevin L. Sullivan Trust for a variance to section 4.4B of subdivision regulations, Ray, lot width at 3840 Dolly Road, and that is in District 2. Number 2 is Andrea Morris, Lynn Haven Mall, LLC, for a modification of conditions to a conditional use permit, Ray, outdoor recreational facility at 701 Lynn Haven Parkway, and that is in District 3. Number 3 is Hall of Virginia Beach 6 LLC, Auto Properties, Virginia Beach 6 LLC, for a modification of conditions for a conditional use permit, Ray, motor vehicle sales and services at 1875 and 1877 Laskin Road, and the parcel directly south at 621 Village Drive, and that is in District 6. This is going to be deferred until September 16th, and that's number 4, Virginia Beach Residences LLC, Baker Road Properties LLC, for modification of proffers to a conditional change of zoning. Ray, constructed 325 multi-use development at 1276 Baker Road and vacant parcel north of 1276 Baker Road, and that is in District 4. Number 5 is Jeffrey and Karen Barrett, Jeffrey George and Karen Augustine Barrett, Joint Living Trust, for a conditional use permit, Ray, residential kennel at 2408 Needle Court Crossing, and that's in District 2. Number 4 is LaVar Hyman, Anna Marina Enterprises LLC, for a conditional use permit, Ray, car wash facility at 4859 Dolton Drive, and that's Unit A, District 3. Number 7, Tent Daddy-O of Virginia Beach LLC, Clemson JBS LLC, for conditional use permit, Ray, automobile repair garage at 4912 Rutherford Road, Suite 101, and that is in District 9. Number 8 is Melinda Lyon for conditional use permit, Ray, short-term rental at 304 28th Street, Unit 210, and that is in District 6. Number 9 is JE and JK Limited LLC for conditional use permit, for a short-term rental at 401 21st Street, Unit 3, District 6. Number 10 is Debbie Anderson, Sean and Debbie Anderson, for a conditional use permit, Ray, short-term rental at 2113 Atlantic Avenue, Unit 6B, and that's in District 6. Number 11 is the ordinance to amend City Zoning Ordinance C20, Section 104, Ray, change the short-term rental violations from civil penalty to criminal penalty. Number 12, to ordinance to amend City Zoning Ordinance Section 241.2, Ray, short-term rentals, and this is going to be revision number 2. Number 13 is the ordinance to amend City Ordinance zoning change to Section 104, Ray, civil penalties. Number 14 is ordinance to amend City Zoning Ordinance Section 106, Ray, appeal period for notice of violation. Number 15 is the ordinance to amend City Code Appendix B, subdivision regulation, Ray, update references to the state code and the erosion and stormwater management ordinance. Number 16 is the ordinance to amend City Code Appendix C, site plan ordinance, Ray, update references to the state code and the erosion and stormwater management ordinance. Move for approval.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? Work?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Dow. Thank you, Vice Mayor Wilson. I want to make 2 comments on J1, the resolution, and K12 and planning. on short-term rentals. J1, the resolution, I want to thank my colleagues here on council for sponsoring and asking for this resolution. It's gotten some press today. It's the resolution requesting oceanfront retailers to voluntarily remove indecent and/or vulgar T-shirts and displays from storefronts. This is on Atlantic Avenue. This is a resolution, so we're asking kindly for our storefront owners to help us raise the bar at the oceanfront on Atlantic Avenue, improve our image. And we're asking the Resort Advisory Commission, the Atlantic Avenue Association, and the Hotel Association, the Restaurant Association, citizens as well, to please ask these owners to help us do this. And I thank council for that. On K-12, this is a lot of the ordinances, and tonight are on short-term rentals. What is I'm asking for at this point is, where I'm describing what was passed out to council members right before we went into close, and that's a revised K-12 ordinance that addresses parking, as we discussed earlier in the planning meeting, as well as adding Class C, Class A, B, and C, so including all three classes of contractors to conduct inspections for short-term rentals. That's my explanation.
Okay, thank you. The one thing, I did have a couple concerns on with the contractors, inspecting. I've asked, and I'm going to request the Planning Commission to look into ensure that the inspectors are not also soliciting to do the work, which may be a conflict. So I will be bringing that forward to the Planning Commission for potential action, with City Council. Okay, but otherwise, thank you. Very well done. Okay.
The vote is open. Oh, sorry, now it is. Councilmember, thank you. By a vote of 11-0, you've approved the consent agenda as read by Vice Mayor Wilson.
Okay, any appointments tonight? Okay, I do, any old business? Under new business, I'd just like to we got a couple scouts back there that I ignored. Can you come forward? And yeah, come on back. Come on down. We always like to acknowledge future leaders. If you can come in one at a time, tell me your name and come, and I'll come give you a seat.
If you'll come to the lectern and say your name and your scout.
Yep, and your troop and everything.
Your troop, there you go. Go right here to the microphone.
There you go. You started off. There you go.
Tom
Welcome.
Callahan, thank you, sir. Thank you, Council. Tom Callahan, Troop 417 and 19, and we meet at St. Andrews in Virginia Beach.
Okay, outstanding.
My name is Zoe, and I'm Troop 19.
Well, welcome. Hey, come on up. I got a button for you here. There you go. And come on up. There you go. Good stuff. Good job.
My name is Noah Larson. I'm from Troop 12, and we meet at Providence Presbyterian Church.
Hey, outstanding. And thank you so much for coming. The future of Virginia Beach. Okay, that being said, I think we're ready to adjourn to open mic. Thank you very much. And ask for a motion to approve the closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Second.
Yes.
Councilman Thomas.
Aye.
Councilman Henley. Councilman Robinson.
Aye.
Councilman Jackson Green.
Aye.
Councilman Rowland.
Aye.
Councilman
Aye.
Councilman Morale.
Aye.
Councilman Schulman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson. Aye. Mayor Dyer.
Aye.
5 votes, 11 to 3.
Out of here.
Okay, thank you all.